Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Township Committee meeting of Thursday, February 27th. Greg, has adequate notice been given?
Yes, adequate notice of this meeting of the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham was given as required by the Open Public Meeting Act as follows. Notice was given to both the Chatham Courier and the Morris County Daily Record on January 3rd, 2020. Notice was posted on the bulletin board in the main hallway of the municipal building on January 3rd, 2020. And notice was filed with the Township Clerk on January 3rd, 2020.
Thank you very much. Can we rise for the flag salute?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, roll call.
Mrs. Ewald?
Here.
Mrs. Fondacco?
Here.
Mrs. Swartz?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Ness?
Yes.
Mayor Kelly?
Here. Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Reports. Celeste, would you like to start today?
Start with me already? Okay. On Sunday, March 1st, the single-use plastic reduction ordinance takes place in effect in both the Chathams and Madison. The towns worked together to make sure that the three towns made the transition at the same time. The Environmental Commission has notified all of the business to give them a letter and a copy of the ordinance, a poster for display at the point of purchase. They also worked on a reusable bag collection and have bags to distribute to the residents who would like a reusable bag or two. If you need a reusable bag, you can reach out to me. And they've received a donation of 150 bags made to the senior center last week. If you need one, I guess you can contact me and I'll find you some. The ShopRite may charge 10 cents for a paper bag. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Karen, would you like to?
Yes, thank you. Really, about the only thing that is of any specific important matter right now is the fact that the Senior Center is offering free tax preparation for our seniors. Appointments are necessary. They are going to be providing appointments on Fridays between March 6th and April 10th. So please, to our seniors who wish to have free tax preparation, please don't hesitate. Appointments can be made online. They can also be made by contacting our senior center if there's no online capability. freetaxesmorrisnj.org, if anyone is listening, freetaxesmorrisnj.org, and we will get a flyer out to make sure it's on our township website. That's it.
Thank you, Karen. Stacy?
Yeah, a couple of reports. I just raced in from one of the Chatham Education Foundation events. I am the Board of Ed liaison. There's many things to love about Chatham, but two of the main things that are, I would say, a cornerstone of our community are our schools and our volunteers, and those come together in our Chatham Education Foundation. So if you're not familiar with the organization, look them up. They do a lot of great things for our schools. The planning board met on February 24th, and they created a steering subcommittee to focus on updating the master plan. So stay tuned. I'm hoping we get the community involved in terms of updating the master plan, so that's going to be starting. I went to the Madison Chatham Coalition meeting, and there is going to be a presentation that we're all invited to. Madison Detective Shannon will be presenting on community drug trends on March 2nd at 7 p.m. So I encourage residents to attend. And then the other meeting I went to was the Tri-Town 55 Plus Coalition. And they have established 2 community task forces that are focused on housing and transportation for our seniors. So if you have an interest, please try to attend. They've tentatively scheduled the next meeting on March 25th.
Thanks, Stacy. Tracy?
Then I'll segue right into, I attended the Senior Advisory Committee. As many of you know, the borough put together a Senior Advisory Committee, and we're attending, and one of the things that came out of that was that they would like to put together a joint senior advisory committee. We discussed having something that might be separate just for the township community because we have some different interests, but the feeling was that mostly the interests are going to be the same. They have a bunch of different steering committee groups with recreation, walkability and access, senior services, communications group, and it was really a terrific meeting and very well attended. There was about 20 people there, 20 plus people there. And one of the big topics of discussion was sidewalk repair and walkability issues, that they were concerned about entrance into buildings as well, and making sure that those are senior friendly. Also seeing at night with possibly some curbing that could have some reflectors on it. So these kind of walkability, drivability issues came up during this meeting. So we'll talk further as a committee about possibly putting together a joint committee with the borough on as a senior advisory committee. I'd like to give a shout out to Ms. Spinner's first grade class at Southern Boulevard School. I attended there today and I gave a presentation on as they were studying the various forms of government. It's always lifts the heart to see first graders ask questions about government, and they wanted to know what my favorite color was and what my most challenging thing was and what did I talk to Mayor Mike Kelly about during the day. And it was wonderful. I gave them a book that was written, I'm sure probably many of you might have this book. It's about Chatham Township, and inscribed it and gave it to them and talked about the Little Red Schoolhouse and the fact that George Washington was in Chatham and when we were first founded, and it was just a wonderful thing to do. So that's a fun thing that we get to do as elected officials. I also wanted to point out, since March is nigh, that March is Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. So for some of you, this may be TMI, but a very good friend of mine with really out any symptoms is been diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer and has not even hit 50. So as part of her remission mission, I went and got my colonoscopy, and it's not the most wonderful thing in the world, but when you see what she's going through and how she's fighting, and given the fact that March is going to be Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month, I will urge all of you to go ahead and do that and take care of your health. That's fine.
Thank you, Tracy. John, anything to report?
Nothing to report, Mayor.
Very good. Albert?
No, Mayor.
And Bob?
Yes, Mayor, 2 items. The first item is that tonight we had originally been anticipating introducing our budget, but the state has changed the budget forms that are supposed to be used for the the user-friendly budget. So those forms will be coming out tomorrow. They'll be released tomorrow. So we will wind up re-inputting our information into the new forms once they come out, and then we anticipate being able to introduce the budget sometime in March. So that's item number 1. Item number 2 is just that the township always endeavors to answer OPA requests in a prompt manner, but some OPA requests are more challenging than others. We recently had an OPA request that took 7 staff days to respond to, and it wound up costing the township $2,073.69 in staff time to do. And what was challenging about this is we wound up having to bring up 50 boxes from storage to go through them, but the information that we provided to this individual that made the OPA request was information that this individual had given to the township. So we wound up doing, instead of this individual going through their own records, we wound up going through the records and doing that. And that just meant that we were unable to do other work that had been scheduled. But that's just something that we're tracking. That's part of our responsibility to respond to OPRAs, but sometimes ones like these are very frustrating. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And quick county report, really. I attended a county traffic gathering for this end of the county on Saturday. they reported that, actually, the focus of the meeting ended up being the Park Avenue corridor up through Madison and into Hanover and Florham Park, and the focus is the improvements on that intersection of Columbia Turnpike, Park Avenue, and Route 24 that all kind of cross over there. They're still probably 5 or 6 years away, they think, from doing any improvements there, but they are working on it. And as a corollary, they did say that they would be asking the DOT to also re-examine the functionality of Route 24 itself, both the two lanes that exist now from the Short Hills Mall out to 287, and to see if that could be expanded, and also revisiting the question of another interchange during that stretch where there is none now. So those are on the table there. The good news for us is that we did get an invitation to please, for our local traffic concerns, to don't hesitate to bring those to the attention of the county engineer, so we intend to do it. We certainly have some county roads here in town that are just, yeah, gridlocked at just at different times of the day, so we want to get some attention on that as well. The other piece of information from that same meeting was that the county announced their paving of county road plans for the coming year. Here in Chatham Township, the only stretch of county road that's targeted for repaving this summer will be the stretch of Shunpike from Loantica to Southern Boulevard, so past the shopping centers there. So that's on the schedule for this summer. So I think that's it. So we'll advance to the introduction of ordinances. Greg, could you read the heading on the ordinance for us?
Ordinance 2020-03, an ordinance to provide minimum and maximum ranges for compensation for certain positions of employment in the Township of Chatham and the County of Morris, New Jersey, effective January 1, 2020.
Thank you, Greg. Could I have a motion to introduce this ordinance?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Very good. Bob, could you give a quick description of what this does?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. This is a salary ordinance for the township staff. There would be a public hearing that would happen in March. No action on salaries could be taken until after a salary ordinance is adopted, and also a salary resolution which lists the compensation for the specific positions in the township. So this is something that we had anticipated introducing in step with the budget, but this is we'd appreciate if this could be introduced, and no action can be taken until after it's adopted and resolutions for specific positions are agreed to by the Township Committee.
And this actually sets the minimum and maximum for a position. It doesn't set the actual salaries for any individual.
That's correct. That's done by resolution.
Very good. Greg, could I have a roll call? And this is just introduction with the public hearing scheduled for 2 weeks.
Mrs. Ewald?
Yes.
Mrs. Fondaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ness?
Yes.
Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
Public hearing on March 12th.
Thank you, Craig. The next item is the consent agenda. Craig, could you read the titles for those resolutions?
Resolution 2020-69, receipt of reports. 2020-70, approving meeting minutes. 2020-71, approving executive session minutes. 2020-72, approving list of volunteers eligible for LoSAP. 2020-73, appointing member to Environmental Commission. And 2020-74, settling Patel tax appeal.
May I raise a brief point regarding an item on the agenda, on the consent agenda? We see here, ladies and gentlemen, 2020-072 is approving a list of volunteers eligible for LoSAP. The LoSAP program here in Chatham Township is a length of service retirement program wherein we offer to most of our dedicated volunteers, based on their length of service, an actual contribution toward retirement. It may not seem like an awful lot given the fact that these people put in countless hours protecting our community, but as a member of the Public Safety Subcommittee over the years, we know how important our volunteers are. We know how important our emergency squad is. We know how important our firefighters are. And when they give of their spare time, when they actually put themselves as a first line of defense for many of us, the fact that we actually do contribute some of our hard-earned tax dollars towards their retirement program is something I think we all should be very, very aware of and proud of. Thank you.
Thank you. That is a great point. Both our fire departments and our emergency squad at the start of the year have their induction ceremonies, and it was great to see the officers being inducted for the coming year. It was great to see new members being inducted in each case, both fire departments and the rescue squad. However, also there were some members retiring, so it's a constant churn, and if anybody could see it in their interest to have to step up and volunteer for any one of those organizations, either fire department or the rescue squad, they would love to talk to you. They are three very, very strong organizations, and the rescue squad especially prides itself on being one of the really most active rescue squads in the region, where it can actually mobilize a third ambulance when needed during the day, and that is unheard of for volunteer rescue squads in these days with people work conflicts and things like that. So it's a great vibrant group, and they would love to have new faces. So thank you for mentioning that, Karen. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
Mrs. Ewald?
Yes.
Mrs. Fandacco?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ness?
Yes.
Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, which brings us to the affordable housing topic. And let me start with a brief update, if I may. The next item on the agenda is the presentation of our tentative new affordable housing agreement. I'm sure most of you have seen the explanation we released online, but for anyone who missed it, and to refresh the memory of those who did see it, I will give a brief recap before we swing into questions and public comment. As we announced yesterday, Chatham Township has reached an agreement in principle on a plan to meet the township's affordable housing obligation. This agreement will allow the township to meet its third round obligation of 200 affordable housing units by using up to 6 sites with a mix of group homes and family apartments. The key parts of the plan are approximately 62 family rental units will be located on vacant land owned by the township between numbers 476 and 490 River Road, near the Cardinal Hill Apartments. Some of these units would be offered with a 90-day preference for veterans. Approximately 12 group home beds will be located in 3 separate group homes on properties still to be determined, but scattered throughout the township. 24 family rental units are already approved at Arbor Green to be built between the skate park and the police headquarters by the builder of the Dixie-Dale townhomes. The settlement also gives the township credit for the 72 existing owner-occupied units at Vernon Grove and a surplus of 8 units carried forward from the round 2 affordable housing process, plus bonuses for providing rental units. The agreement sets a strict 120-day schedule leading to a full compliance hearing in mid-June, and it sets a longer-range construction calendar, calling for groundbreaking on the final affordable housing units by the spring of 2022. The framework of this plan grew out of 2 mediation sessions held between representatives of Chatham Township and the Fair Share Housing Center, which represents the interests of low-income families. The conditions of the agreement were reduced to writing for the first time earlier today by the court-appointed master who served as mediator of those sessions. The details of the plan will be presented to a Superior Court judge for approval at a hearing scheduled for 2 weeks from tomorrow on Friday, March 13th. Despite continuing litigation and the still pending court approval of the plan, the Township Committee released the agreement in principle yesterday and is prepared to discuss it tonight because we promised to tell the public as soon as there was progress on this important topic of affordable housing. We have a mountain of information, but please understand that it is not yet organized as a presentation or as handouts. We will answer all the questions we can tonight, and your questions and comments will be recorded and will help us present more information at future meetings. Chatham Township has been working on this complex challenge of affordable housing through 5 years and 4 mayors, and that's just since I joined the Township Committee. We thought we had reached an agreement more than a year ago in December of 2018, but this amended agreement, when approved by the judge, will give us 2 important new mechanisms to provide affordable housing. Group homes that will allow us to scatter 3 small sites across the community, and veterans preference, which will allow us to recognize those who served. The end result will be a better plan both for the township and for our future neighbors who will be the residents of these affordable homes. And thank you to all of you who have helped get us to where we are today. So with that recap, I would open up the meeting to public comments. Would you, if you would, please come to the microphone, identify yourself and your address, and we ask that you limit yourself to 5 minutes or less. There's a good crowd here tonight, so we would like to hear as many people as possible.
Peter Nigro, 475 River Road, directly across from where you're proposing to put these units. I don't understand how you would pick that section when Dixie-Dale is more conducive, will have less impact on the homes in the area, and is across from condos, which it would go with far greater than a residential neighborhood. I don't know what we can do to stop it, but that's what I would like to do. Stop it in that location. It's going to ruin the home values for us. Traffic's going to be horrendous anyway. Be better off down by Southern Boulevard and River Road than where it is, or where it's proposed to be. You can't explain to me how that's a better area. That's it.
Go ahead.
Hello, Rich Ferrara, 20 Evergreen Road. I just have a couple quick questions. If the land for the affordable housing is donated by the town that owns it, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So it's given to the builder, he builds it, and it's a rental, correct? Who gets the rent?
The rent goes to the builder operator. That's part of his cash flow for the expense of building.
Okay, and if any exceeding expenses to build, is it going to be incurred by the township?
Yes, it will.
Then why don't we get the rents? That seems very absurd to me, that. We have no idea what it could cost, but it's going to be incurred on the township. And he's getting the land, or whomever is getting the land. I don't understand that.
Okay. Let me take a step back and give some of the background and context of that, and if I could. Basically, and I'm sure you're aware, the affordable housing obligation is just that. It's an obligation.
Correct.
The
yeah.
state Supreme Court has ruled that towns have this obligation to make affordable housing doable in their towns.
Right.
And then the process starts, and each town is assigned a number of how many units to provide. Ours was, our realistic development potential, as they call it, is 200, with another 187 that they are unmet need.
Okay.
Basically, a town has 2 ways to advance to meet that 200 development requirement. The first is what's called the builder's remedy, and under that plan, a town needs to zone enough land within its borders to accommodate not just the obligation number that it's been assigned, but also to allow any future builder to build 4 market rate units for every one affordable unit. So in our case, with 200 affordable units, that 4-to-1 ratio would have been 1,000 total units. And under that plan, it's those market rate units that generate the profit that allow the builder to cover the cost of building the affordable units. However, the town, while it doesn't have to donate the land and backstop the cost, the town will be paying a cost forever going forward of 1,000 units. It will have to deal with the traffic. You'll have to deal with the kids in the school system. You'll have to deal with the density and the number of buildings and all the things that go with 1,000 extra units in a town that only has 4,000 units to begin with. So that's one way to go. And the Township Committee, about 3 years ago, decided that that was not the smart way to do it. And we went with the second option, which is called a 100% municipally sponsored option.
By donating the land.
And under that option, a town does have upfront costs. It has to make available municipal land, and it has to agree to a payment in lieu of taxes after the development is finished.
So so there's no taxes?
No, there would be a tax, but it would be lower than what the regular
rate.
tax rate would be. And after all the financing options are exhausted, there are a number of different financing options that any of these developments can apply for, that the town would have to make up the difference. And under that plan, yes, there is the financial cost up front, but we're able to only deliver the obligated number of units, which in our case is the 200. And you avoid having to even deal with that extra 800 units. So it's
Catch-22.
those are the two options, and that's the way the state allows it. You can pick one or you can pick the other.
And-
I was at a League of Municipalities meeting on affordable housing with maybe 500 people in the audience, and when it came to the question and answer period of that session, the people coming to the microphone, one after the other, was asking how they could change from the builder's remedy option to the municipally sponsored option, because after listening to the panel explain what I just tried to explain, these people representing towns across the state wanted to know how they could change from what they were doing to what we're doing. And the answer was you can't. At this stage, you are locked in. You've made that decision 3 years ago in our case, and now that's your plan to deliver. So yes, we are faced with the challenges that you're pointing out, and all I can say is that was a conscious decision to avoid what we felt were the worst challenges that would have come with the other plan.
I just have two other quick questions. The other is this open bid, or is it a done deal, whoever is building these? And who is building them?
We went out and contacted a sizable list of developers who specialize in these kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked to a number of them. They've looked at the plan, and we are going forward with the two developers that have good experience and have given us the best response to this date of what they can do.
And they are?
We haven't signed any contract with anybody yet. It's strictly a preliminary thing at this point, so I wouldn't want to mention any names.
But we still don't know what these outstanding costs would be, other than...
We'll be zeroing in on them as we move forward, but at the moment, we have some orders of magnitude, but we don't have exact dollar numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. I'm Sean Leonard. I live on Myersville Road. I thought I'd just give, as a good segue, because I had been doing some work on the cost of the municipal sponsored option, just to get a sense for, what this is going to cost, because I think it's informative for the next round. We're going to have this is just going to keep coming at us, so everyone knows, right? This isn't just round one. This is going to keep coming, particularly with how the census goes and other things, right? So, the work I've been doing is just looking at the latest 98 units, which 24 will be at the skate park. So there's agreements on that where we're able to go through. But there's really three costs. It's the town providing the land and maybe buildings, depending on what's done. There's the payment in lieu of taxes. So there's payments that are being made, and there's a loss of potential tax revenue. And then combined within that is the school load. So how many additional students will you take on when you have a high-density housing development with low taxes? For instance, the payments in lieu of taxes for the skate park site is only $17,000. All right, so that's the average cost of a student to go to Chatham schools is $15,000 in that neighborhood. So right there, it's going to cost you some money. So that's, I've been looking at it, and the numbers I've been coming up with, and they're hard to calculate because particularly the number of students are hard to get your hands around. But, you're talking probably in the neighborhood of $150,000 per unit. So if you're building 98 units, some might be more, some might be less, depending on what you're doing. For instance, you're doing the group homes and potentially the River Road site. This site, the municipal building site, would have been very expensive because that would have required us to probably build a new building, which would have been, significantly more than $150,000 per unit. But if you look at it that way, it's $15 million cost to the township on a present value basis, if you believe those numbers. Now, if you guys have numbers, please provide those. But I think that's in the neighborhood of what we're talking about. So, as we go forward and we start to talk about this issue, those are the types of numbers we're talking about. So that's multiples of the municipal budget, as we know, not the school budget, the municipal portion of the budget. So this is a huge issue, and expect, obviously I think everyone expects a lot of attention to be focused on this. And we think moving from the Myersville site to a River Road site still it's not meeting some of the requirements that we've had, like multi-site. We thought a multi-site plan would be more equitable for people in the township, maybe cost a little more, but more equitable. But this site versus River Road, that's some progress, because it would appear that would be a much less expensive option. So, those are the types of numbers we're talking about, and that's why this issue is such a big issue. Thank you.
I'm sorry. And Bob, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I've got about 14,000 spreadsheets here, but I just wanted to go back. You said that the pilot from Dixie-Dale was 17,000. It's 17,000 to the municipality, Bob, and if we go back to the figures, and I don't want to misquote this, the tax revenue is $165,000, and the school district is $636,000.
From Dixie-Dale.
That's strictly from Dixie-Dale.
Yes, that's from Dixie-Dale. I believe the gentleman might be referring to the pilot from the Arbor Green after that's implemented, but I'm not sure of that. But Dixie-Dale is going to be 53 units that will be a significant rateable to the township.
Yeah, that number stuck in my head. Dixie-Dale will generate about $1 million in taxes a year, of which 2/3 will go to the school district, and the other third is divided between the county and the municipality. The 17,000 figure, I do believe, relates to the annual pilot, which is a payment in lieu of taxes from just the Arbor Green portion of it. But it is a linked kind of a project. So I think you need to at least be aware that the Dixie-Dale portion of it is paying.
No, I can see where there would be market rate.
Yes.
Of looking at the below market rate and what that's costing. you know, because obviously more residents, whether it's 50 units, 100 units, 1,000 units, I agree, there's costs that go with that. Presumably the taxes are providing that's a fair and equitable exchange. The 24 units is not so, because it's 17,000 for 24 units. So I was looking at the land cost versus what the giveaway there is, plus what the potential load would be on the schools. And, you know, it's hard to calculate incremental costs depending on how many students. If there's only 2 students, it's probably not much. If there's 50 students, then you're adding classrooms and teachers and other types of costs. So I think that's, you know, I think those types of calculations, if you could provide those, I think it would help analyze different scenarios, particularly into the future, as we try to tackle this issue. Because if you're able to save off of $15 million, 20%, you know, those are significant numbers. And just to give people a sense for what the state requirements are hoisting on us, these are costs to the community that are being pushed down from the judicial branch.
We will have comparative costs for the different sites and also projections on students. Those are good requests. But we don't have in an organized fashion to try to present them. So, I mean, I think that we will definitely make those available.
Thank you.
Yeah. Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, did you want to mention about the grant funding that's becoming available in March?
I'd like to.
Just so that everybody knows, the state has announced that there's going to be grant funding available starting in March. There's one pot of money that's approximately $59 million that's available for affordable housing construction. And then there's also another funding pot that's available. So there's going to be webinars on that the first week of March, and then the applications will be available later in March. And that's part of the reason we want to be able to factor in our eligibility for grants as part of our evaluation. So we won't be able to do that until after the financial webinars.
Thank you. Nicole.
Hi, Nicole Hagner, 396 River Road, Chatham Township. I have one question not on affordable housing first, that my daughter wanted to ensure that the ordinance that you guys had proposed to eliminate plastic bags in town is going to be in effect this month. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you guys will have an enforcement mechanism? Because I know they have learned a lot about the devastation of plastic in the oceans and stuff, and she's quite adamant.
Yes, the Board of Health inspection process will start this starting March 1st.
Okay, so she seems pleased. So thank you on that. So for affordable housing, so it was my understanding that as part of the initial litigation, right, there was a proposal or a potential option to present River Road back last year. And then back in December, and I think you just mentioned that, Mayor Kelly, that that was taken off the table because it was not deemed to be a viable option to be developed for affordable housing, and certainly not at the density that's currently being proposed. It wasn't suitable. I don't know why it was ever proposed, because according to our master plan and everything that the town's done for the last 20 years, that's incredibly sensitive slopes there. They're highly critical. They shouldn't be developed, or certainly not overdeveloped. So I don't really understand why it was being proposed. So I sort of felt I understood why it was being taken off as a viable option, because it certainly didn't meet anything that's in our master plan. Nor my understanding was that the developer that you guys had talked to didn't feel like they could do it. So I guess I'm kind of confused why now it's the only option being proposed.
We moved away from the River Road plan in favor of looking at this site. The strategy at that point was to try to solve 3 different challenges facing the township at one time, because we thought there was some interconnectivity between the need to provide affordable housing, the condition of this building, which is bigger than our current needs and in need of an estimated $4 million worth of upgrades to its heating, air conditioning, roof, windows. And also the third challenge was the police department, which has been found to be in need of significant investment to bring it into compliance as well. So with those three township assets all needing reinvestment, the thought was that we could try to combine those into one solution. As we proceeded with that, it became pretty clear that the costs associated with that were significantly higher than the costs which we were seeing at other sites. The putting of affordable housing on this footprint would have required the building of a new town hall / police department over on Southern Boulevard, and that by itself was just in the $11 million range, which on top of affordable housing costs just were not realistic. So we have been spending really the last couple of months, we kind of glossed over it. We said we would reconsider, was what the pledge we made to the public back in November, December, and that's what we've been doing, is re-examining the premises that went into that original look, and we found some ways to do things that made things more feasible than we thought they were before. One of the hurdles to the River Road property initially was the lack of a sewer service in front of the property, and that would have been an estimated $1.7 million just on top of everything else to get the sewer extended that far. However, there is a more economical way to solve that problem of a pumping station that would connect to the existing sewer system up on the ridge. So that shaved a significant amount of money and expense off of that proposal. So
Are provisions being made for everybody else on River Road to tap into the sewer system free of charge? If you're going to give it to 62 affordable housing units, is everybody else on River Road given the same opportunity to get free sewer too?
No, the sewer extension down the road would have provided that option, and
free of cost, it would be providing that option.
No, sewer connection is not free of cost.
You're giving it free of cost to the 62 affordable housing units. And the reason why sewers aren't on River Road is because it was a anti-development tactic. If they put sewers on River Road, then it would have potentially encouraged more development there. So it's not like the River Road residents didn't want sewer. It's that the township never wanted to put it there.
When did this happen, Nicole?
It's been, listen, there's only 350 houses in the entire Chatham Township that have septic. And they're in the two worst possible areas. And every time it's been proposed or considered, it's always knocked down because people don't want overdevelopment in those areas.
I can remember writing about the one part of the sewer project, and this was a while ago, that went on River Road and up Mountainside, and I don't recall when that was.
It's the same thing. It's Green Village and River Road. They're the only areas that don't have
And there was a lot of
sewer lines.
discussion at the time about the cost of hooking up, and that there was financing that was going to be provided for people who couldn't hook up or people who had just redone their septic systems. It was
because the town has never, ever really entertained a serious proposal to do it. So residents have to fix their septic tanks. There's many residents on River Road and in Green Village that either have to mound their, septics, or they can't even do modest renovations to their house. I remember when I was on the township committee, we had many residents who had that problem. But Mike, excuse me, Mayor Kelly, I guess what I don't understand is you're putting it right in the most sensitive slopes in the town that this town has tried to preserve for years now. I wanted to build one house on 6 acres and could barely get that done. One house, 6 acres. You're putting a 62 building apartment complex slapped up against the hillside, and you're going to devastate that entire hillside and change the entire character of just a swath to solve this problem. The other gentleman, like he said, there was many people that came here with a lot of recommendations to try to look at where you could do it. You don't have to do it all at one site, but that's basically what you guys are still doing. Instead of being here, now you're slapping it down on River Road where there isn't any even building already. It doesn't make sense. Everything this town has done is to keep the character the way it is. I mean, people aren't opposed to development, but they certainly don't want this, and not where it's sensitive. I mean, I had to put 17 dry wells in just to get one house. Like, what are you guys going to do there? How are you going to prevent the runoff? Are you going to put sidewalks in for us on River Road? Are you going to make any accommodations for the people who have to be in this neighborhood? I had to make sure that I could have a sight line up the street to get out of my driveway. How are you ever going to get these people out onto River Road? Has all of that been considered? I mean, I actually thought I was going to come here tonight and see a presentation of what was actually being proposed. And it's quite disappointing that we're just being told that they're doing this, and then in 2 weeks, you're going to have a mediation that basically makes it sound like this is a done deal. So I'm not really sure how transparent or how much you're really considering multiple different options. You can certainly put more down at the skate park. You've even proposed that you could put 12 more down there. Why can't it be a little bit more? Is that my timer, Greg? Am I up? Sorry. I might come back, though.
Any response to Nicole?
Sure.
So my name's Susie Leonard. I live on Myersville Road. My husband spoke right before Nicole, and he's the numbers guy. So I just want to start off by saying I'm here because we, in June, will be our 20th year in Chatham. And in all those years, and I know it's sad to say, but we've never felt the need to come to a township meeting. You know, we really weren't building a new house like Nicole or some of the other reasons people come. And I think that that is a positive, because I think most of the time the township must be doing a good job, because there wasn't anything that my husband and I felt that we had to come here and fight for something. And I feel like this affordable housing issue changed all that. We chose Chatham for many reasons. Number one, well, my husband, he's a researcher. He does lots of research before he does anything. Doesn't matter what he's getting, a pair of sneakers. He's an accountant. We didn't know anybody in Chatham when we moved here. I grew up in Central PA. He grew up in Philadelphia. But Chatham Township on paper, Chatham in general on paper, is the place to be. Number one in 2008, New Jersey Monthly, best place to live in New Jersey. We've raised 2 kids here. You know, my oldest goes to school at Fairleigh Dickinson, hasn't strayed far. We wanted him to go further, but as the particulars emerged about this affordable housing, it became clear that just the unfairness of the decisions that were being made, and I'm not accusing any one person. I know it's an amalgam of many decisions that have been made over time, but it became more and more disturbing and really hard not to get just so angry. So Saturday we had a meeting, and it was an open meeting. Anybody could come. We held it at the library. And people from Rolling Hill area, people from River Road, people from what we call here Chatham Heights came. It wasn't a huge turnout, but this is what came out of that meeting from people from all areas of our town. We want a multi-site plan. We want the affordable housing to be distributed equitably throughout our town in a way that not one particular area is going to bear the brunt of what affordable housing means to our town. It was, for a time, going to be here, which is half a mile from my house. Now it's being moved down to River Road. And I know my husband gave numbers, and it seemed like he was suggesting that the River Road makes more sense financially, and I think it does on paper. But I agree with Nicole. It's the change in the nature of the neighborhood is going to be so drastic. And I don't think that's what affordable housing is supposed to be. It's supposed to integrate people into your community and make them feel welcome, not make them feel like ostracized or up on a hill, and make the neighbors that they're moving next to feel so angry at them, and they haven't done anything. So even though this is not it's kind of our situation, Chatham Heights we've kind of been diverted for the moment. We don't want to abandon our neighbors on River Road and in other areas, because the next round of affordable housing might be back here. Or it might be, I don't know where everybody is coming from, it might be in your backyard. So this is an issue that our town needs to look at as a whole. To consider things like quality of life, the investments people have made in the property, people who have had a home, their parental home from the 1960s, that now is being affected because this is going to be built right across the street from that home. Traffic concerns. We're already coming to these meetings saying the traffic between Fairmount and River Road is really dangerous. You put 62 more units right down the road, it's just going to... one of the River Road residents had said in response to hearing the news, everyone's saying this is good news. He said, not for River Road, it's not. And I feel for them, because I know what that felt like when I found out we were supposed to have that many units half a mile from my house. Our conclusions that we came up with, this group of 30 or so people, the residents are really going to be following the committee. I'm sorry, can I just finish?
Sure.
Okay. I think we all agreed that there was a serious breakdown in the communication between the committee people and the public. And there's a trust issue now. You know, people are now going to be, the residents are now suspicious that there's backdoor dealings. Their motives are maybe being questioned now. It's hard now for people to trust what's going forward. The citizens want to be involved. I think they've proven in Jim D'Amato, Mike Oyen, Chris Felice have done so much work. It's almost like a part-time job or a full-time job, how much work they put into the numbers. And, you know, they do this for a living. And that they've been so giving of their time. There has to be a better way to distribute the affordable housing. I know we're against a time clock. The use of Green Acres land hasn't really been, as far as what I've been hearing, you know, 1-to-1 ratio, 1-to-2 ratio. I know purchasing and renovating existing buildings. There's a couple really buildings that need to be looked at.
There are a lot of people here to speak, so...
I know, I'm sorry. I won't, final comment. The one thing that this process, being involved in this since November, has taught me is that we have to be involved. We have to know what's happening in literally our own backyards. Stay involved. Be part of the greater plan for this town. Because it's worth fighting for us, because it's where we live. Thank you. I'm sorry I went over.
Can I just wanted to address something. I do want to thank, when you brought up Mike Oyen and some of the other people who have been running numbers and presenting ideas. I do want to thank the community. Everybody has done a wonderful job and has been a wonderful resource and has really, you know, Celeste and I were sitting on the other side in November and, you know, challenging the committee. Once we came on the committee, you know, we came in and said, what about this? What about this? What about this? So your ideas were definitely taken under consideration. Unfortunately, and if you read, you know, if you read the papers on affordable housing in other communities, it was very apparent to us that the concept of losing our builder's remedy immunity was on the table. So there is always that pressure, especially because this has been out there for the courts have been dealing with this for 5 years. The Township Committee had their agreement going back to 2018, and we missed our dates, our deliverable dates. July 17th was when we were supposed to have a site available. So, you know, the fact that in November people started getting involved and giving input is greatly appreciated. It was listened to. our attorney made the comment, you know, you come up with an idea, it's like a ball, you squeeze it and something pops out the other way. Either you find out that you have time constraints, you find out that you have wetlands that you can't, that are a problem, you find out that you can't convert your open space for whatever reason, you find out the expense is exorbitant, that you're going to have to bear the full cost of it. So there's been many factors, and that's just a small sampling of them. But you have been listened to, and we do appreciate everything that you've contributed to the process.
And I just also wanted to add that it was really illuminating when the court master assistant came to our executive session. That's really when the rubber hit the road, and there was really a different point of view. We're looking at an outsider's point of view. So as I've been working on this for the past year and into this year, that, you know, we're running around, we're listening to people, we're looking at multi-sites, we're driving around to different sites, we're driving through different places, looking for different properties, trying to achieve this multi-site plan, throwing up all sorts of ideas, and seeing what would work. There's multiple options, multiple spreadsheets along the way. And their point of view was that you're out of time, that this should have started a long time ago. And it was a wake-up call, that as we were trying to deal with all these issues and look at multiple sites and do these things, that, you know, they weren't really interested in hearing that anymore, that we had already gotten several delays. And the deliverable from the 2018 agreement was supposed to be in July. There was really no way that we were ever going to make that, that deadline. The other thing that's come about as we've gone through this is there's a very different calculation for funding. And that this process is not really designed to put small units of housing throughout the township. Even if it was possible to drive around and find 6 lots in 6 different neighborhoods and put 20 units or 15 units on each, that we would bear the entire cost of that, the entire build, the purchase of the land, the administration of the housing. There's no funding for those types of sites. The minimum that they will accept for what's called the maximum amount of funding at a 9% funding rate that's available to the developer is 60 units. Below that, you drop down to a 4% funding rate, which could be the difference of $4 to $5 million on a project. So in order not to have to pay an extra $4 to $5 million, you wanted to go for the 9%, the funding rate for the developer, so that our shortfall wouldn't be so great. And that's the way this process is structured. I don't necessarily agree with the way this process is structured, but that's what we have. And that's what kind of pushed out, well, really the lack of land. It's just not available. We just don't have 10 sites of land to find. In the year and a half that we've been going through this, or the year and now almost 3 months, there has been multiple looks at different pieces of land, and they either came off the table because they didn't get back to us, or there were wetlands issues, and they weren't buildable for what we needed. So the funding issue came into play, the fact that we had to go, in order to save the money, to go for a 60 unit or above. That's the absolute minimum for a 9% funding rate. And that was part of this process that we had to go through. And that's what ultimately led us back to River Road as the site that we had enough land at to be able to do this. There just isn't any other site. We've been looking.
Dan Miller, Green Village. The one big factor, and you know, it's spilt milk at this point, Mrs. Ewald, but you're 100% right. You did bring it up numerous times, as well as other people, and you know, we were told, and we've been told tonight, that you guys thought you had a done deal in 2018, and that done deal was done without any involvement. And that's why we are at this 11th hour trying to find sites other than this one, because this had been a done deal. Now, and that's indisputable fact, as you mentioned, and that can't ever happen again. And I hope our most freshman members on the committee realize that and take that to heart, because we need our public involvement. Look at the smart people sitting in this room, and look at what's been done in just 2 short months, basically, you know, with holidays included, you know, to come up with solutions to a problem that, you know, township committee, past township committees, committees that, Mayor, you sat on, that, you know, just said, well, this is the idea we got, this is what we're going with, and the public will have to love it. So, that being said, one question I have is, if someone had come in, a developer, not for affordable housing, and said, I wish to put 60+ units in one building on River Road, would our planning board or this township committee have ever accepted that?
That's a good question.
You know, it doesn't fit this situation at all.
Right.
This situation is being imposed on us and on towns across the state to meet an obligation for affordable housing for towns that don't have enough for affordable housing already. And it's not the situation you describe at all.
Well, no, understandable, but I'm just asking a question. I'm not talking about affordable housing or anything else. If a developer had come in with a proposal to put 62 units, I think it is, you said, on River Road into that steep slope, or on this site for that matter, at any time, 10 years ago, 10 years from now, nothing to do with affordable housing, would it have been approved by the township committee or the planning board?
Well, in fact, the answer is yes, because Cardinal Hill exists with twice the number of units that this has.
Okay.
So it's
All right, I hope I can get myself a pumping station and put 62 units out in Green Village there on my 5 acres, okay? I doubt that would happen, so that's kind of a farcical answer.
Well, we did have Dixie Dale.
We did have
So,
Dixie Dale.
Dixie Dale is being developed with 53 units on it.
On what size lot?
It's on a 30-acre lot. They're only
Okay,
using
30 acres. Is that how big River Road is?
They're only using a portion of it. There are steep slopes. There's a substantial amount of fill that's going to have to come in for those to be built. The zoning was changed by the committee to allow for multi-site housing there. It was only supposed to be 18 houses. So, yes, I guess there is committees and planning boards that will approve development on a site that has slopes, that has water issues, that was going to require a lot of fill, that's at a density that the developer desired, and no sidewalks, no walking trails, no public access. So
our
yes.
steep slope ordinances really mean nothing
Mr.
and all
Miller,
that
you
stuff.
know the answer as
I know
well
what
as
the
all
answer
of us
is.
do. And you also know that we, as our community, have been mandated by the state, by the Supreme Court of the state of New Jersey, to provide these units. And with all due respect to the careful conservancy and the mentality that we have here in Chatham Township, when you look at land that is available for multifamily dwellings, this is what we have. And as Mrs. Ness explained, when it comes down to parsing out smaller developments, the impact on our budget would have been extraordinary. Giving up the municipal building, as we all know, would have doubled our budget for a $14 million budget in Chatham Township. It would have added another $15 million to our budget. So when it comes to the options, the original River Road plan was for far more than just 60 units, 62. But you know that if the state was going to mandate our land use in order to accommodate either this or a builder's remedy lawsuit, our ability to protect our own land probably would have gone out the window. So whether it was a developer before this or subsequent to it, left up to Chatham Township, we would have protected our property before. Of that, you and I know. We've lived here long enough to know nobody cares more for Chatham Township than we here do. But at the end of the day, this is what we're up against. So, you know, steep slopes and water runoff and all these other things when it comes to the affordable multifamily dwellings, I think we all know where we stand, right?
Okay, fair enough. You know, point made on both sides, though. You know, and I'm glad that it's not going to go here because of those costs. You know, I truly am. Couple other questions. You know, we have somewhat of a business district, you know, up, you know, Shumpike, Southern Boulevard, Green Village Road, that area. There is also some residential in there between Juniper Village and, say, the police station and the country club, that stretch. Now, we know we're going to be up against more, you know, as Mr. Leonard said. We know that we're up against this now. And in my opinion, and it seems to me it would behoove us to take that business district, make it a full business district, get a hold of those homeowners in those certain areas. Also, the name across from Nashville there, what is that called? Chatham Hill, okay? That building with a decent amount of property along with it. You know, then you have those homes. You know, I'm not saying that it can be done within the next 2 weeks. That's understandable. But we should be looking at it. We should be making these people good, decent, solid offers, you know, and in my opinion, and I know it's never popular, but, you know, fair and equitable, eminent domain, so that we can meet our obligations and put these things in an area where it's appropriate for our town. You know, I mean, nobody wants to force anybody out or do anything like that, but we should be looking at that. You know, especially people who own office buildings. They're business people. You know, they're not private homeowners, where it's much different to bring up. We also have on the corner from the ball fields on Green Village Road, right on around that corner. Okay, that's all commercial property at this point. I think, well, maybe not that church there, but you know, as a township, we should be looking forward. And if we meet our obligations as far as affordable housing is concerned, then we have something to create a better business district out of. And it all stays in the same area. And it all does what Chatham Township wants it to do. And it really doesn't hurt anybody. Now, you know, and if affordable housing went there, fine. I mean, that's my neck of the woods, okay? But I think affordable housing's a good thing. I don't think it hurts our community. I don't even necessarily think it hurts our property values. When it hurts property values is when you jam 60 units in a place where you really shouldn't be putting them in. We all know that you shouldn't be putting them there. And that's all I got to say.
That's an excellent suggestion. Over there, we are looking in that direction. We adopted some goals and objectives just a meeting or two ago, and it included a goal and objective to really give a close look to our business district and see how we grow it and develop it and strengthen it for the future. Yes, it's something that is not going to be able to be doable on the timeline for round 3, but we need to be thinking about it for round 4.
Yeah, I mean, if we were willing to spend that kind of money on building a new municipal building, we should be looking at it in the short term, take the hit, get it done, and protect our township, you know, maybe not for me, but maybe for my grandkids, because I want them to live here just as much as I wanted to live here all my life as well.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amelie Lambert and I live on 24A Long Hill Lane. And I would just like to thank you for saving the skate park.
You're very welcome.
Thank you very much for bringing that up. That was a nice benefit of being able to kind of reshape the agreement and amend the agreement. And that skate park can remain. And I'm actually having a meeting tomorrow with the skate park group and a skate park developer to talk about future plans for the skate park site. So, thumbs up on that.
Mike Goyen, 3 Hillcrest Avenue in Chatham Township. As you're well aware, I've been a proponent of the multi-site approach to taking care of affordable housing, and I'd like to say I'm very disappointed in this proposal you're making. First of all, is the 62 units on River Road site going to be specified as the thing to do on River Road, or does it leave the option for acquiring additional properties to go to a more multi-site solution? I know you said you haven't found the opportunity there, but is this sort of like hardwired into the agreement, or is there still an opportunity for other sites to be considered to relieve the burden on the 62?
Well, I mean, we are looking for sites for up to 3 group homes.
I'm not talking about group, I'm talking about sites that you could put affordable housing on that would reduce the 62 to a lower level.
We probably have run out of time on that.
Well, not in terms, I'm not asking you whether you think you have time to acquire the property. I'm asking, as the agreement is being written, does it actually require 62 units on the River Road site?
60 to 62, there's a slight wiggle room there, but it's basically the same number. That would be our agreement there, yes.
Okay, so if magically somebody came up with a piece of land that could take, say, 20 units, it couldn't be incorporated into the plan the way you're writing it.
If magically, we have, the judge will be presented with this plan over the course of the next 2 weeks. He will be accepting this plan, presumably 2 weeks from tomorrow. There is really not time to go start from scratch and looking for a different
I'm
site.
not asking start from scratch. What I see is you've written in the 62 units on River Road to be done, period, without any opportunity to have people suggest alternatives. Isn't that what's happened?
Well, I just
See?
want to go back to this process and that what we've spoken about, and we've
Right.
heard multi-sites. The problem is that there aren't any multi-sites.
That you
We
found,
don't-
that's right.
And we found, that you've put up as suggestions,
but-
that we've gone out to the business districts, as Dan had suggested. We did that as one of the first things that we did. We went out to the various owners of the business areas along there to see if there was any interest of putting it there. There was no interest. We've looked at multiple sites to get some sort of density of housing, and they don't exist. They're either wetlands, there's either wetlands issues, or nobody's magically popping up and say, hey, I'll give you 2 acres that have no wetlands on it, and that magic solution that you've spoken about.
Yeah, I'm not
And
saying there is a
this-
magic, but there's possibility. Maybe we can get into the search issue Saturday with the mayor, but I'd like to say that your characterization of the great funding disadvantage of going from 9 to 4% for the $4.7 million, what is it called, Arbor Green development, that would be less than $250,000. It's a 5% difference.
Arbor Green is not costing us.
No, I'm saying Arbor Green total development cost was 4.7. 5% of that is about $250,000.
Mike, I flagged that question. I think we need to produce some spreadsheets that show
That's
what the
what
dollar
I
amount
was going
is
to,
at.
so my question was, will you provide a financial analysis, cost analysis, to show the added cost of a multi-site development versus the single
will.
site? Because I agree with you that this is a really cheap solution. The 62 with the pumping station, 155,000 for that piece of land is a bargain. I agree with that. But everybody who's come to the meetings has asked for a multi-site solution and said the township should be willing to pay the extra cost. And sure, it will cost more, not just in the loss of state support, but also the developer may not fund the full amount of the development. You may have to subsidize the developer to do that development. Nobody's saying 6 sites here, 6 units here, 6 units there. It's more like 20 here, 20 there. And the trouble with you having gone into the secretive mode of operation after you promised you would look at multiple sites back in December and have option A, B, C, is that there has been no public awareness or scrutiny of what you've been doing. So when you come up with this solution, you say, I'm sorry, this is all we could find. There's skepticism. And it very well may be that this is the best that anybody could have done, but it isn't apparent the way the process was run. So I just wanted to object to that. I'd like to bring up another issue. It's fairly well known that the township is trying to buy additional properties to the east and west of the River Road site. Are you willing to discuss that at this meeting?
We are looking at sites for group homes.
No, I'm expanding.
No, let me finish.
Okay,
but
sorry.
I think it would be inappropriate to talk about specific sites at this point.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Mr. Ryan, just address a couple of points. As I mentioned before, it was very apparent that our loss of our builder's remedy immunity was imminent. And there were a couple of other constraints that we were dealing with along the way. One of them was the time for construction. So it was very clear when we were talking whether it's a municipal building and needing extra time to move police station, municipal staff, whatever it was, we were under a tight time constraint for construction. The other thing is we were under a constraint for making sure that we had a location identified in our control for the bulk of the units.
Well, can I just comment on that? I mean, I'm not saying you didn't do a good job. I'm just saying it's not apparent because it was so secretive. If people had seen the constraints you're operating under and couldn't come up with a better idea, they'd be a lot more satisfied with this solution than having it said that, well, we tried and we didn't make it, so you have to take it. And I mean, you may have done your best, but it isn't apparent that you looked at every possibility. That's all I'm saying.
One of the ongoing problems, and I think we've tried to speak to everybody about this, is that when you're negotiating for a property, or you've identified properties, or you don't tell everybody in the community that, hey, we're going to buy Bob's house, because then it becomes open season. So if there are properties that came to us either privately, or properties that were even listed on the MLS, which we looked at, or properties that we identified in other ways, we can't talk about that in public, because then somebody else may jump on that property. So by the nature of the negotiation, we can't provide a list of saying, we're going to buy all of you, we're talking to this guy, we're talking to that guy, we're talking to this person on Southern Boulevard. You can't do that. It's not secretive, Mike. It is a negotiation process.
I understand that constraint.
Mr. Mayor, if someone's going to speak, they should address the council, the committee at the microphone.
Very good. Thank you.
Jerry Nigro, 475 River Road, directly across from this monstrosity that's proposed.
Can you tilt the microphone down so you can speak
I can.
into it? So that
Should I repeat?
You can tilt it all the way down.
All right.
So that
Do you want me to repeat what I said?
I just want to hear you.
Okay. Jerry Nigro, 475 River Road, directly across from the monstrosity proposed. This is going to erode the value of my home. I'm going to attempt to speak like a mature adult as opposed to the screaming person in my head.
I am so upset by this and so disappointed. I was assured by Mr. Hoffman, nothing going across the street from you. First time I spoke to you in January. I have to sell my house before I lose the value, after which I will be unable to buy in Chatham. And this is what happens because of this. I've lived in Chatham Township 24 years, 20 years in the borough. I have a son that teaches in the middle school. I'll be leaving. I can't afford it because what's happening here will take the value of my property. That's not okay. Affordable housing, all in. Great thing. Please, you got a solution. Sorry, it's going to ruin the value of my property and take me out of the township. That's it.
Jane Devlin, River Road, Chatham Township. So many citizens have come forth tonight and other evenings to say they felt they weren't being heard. They want to be heard, and I do not disagree with this. In fact, when I feel strongly about an issue, including but not limited to affordable housing, I speak out at meetings and sometimes by letters to the editor. I do not always agree with this committee, past and present members. But I want to say something that might be less than popular. I feel we are not listening to this committee this evening, particularly committee members Schwartz and Ness, when they said tonight and are trying to explain this is a mandate, and a lot of what is being suggested by the good citizens of this town, however smart the ideas and however well thought out, are just not fitting in the constraints with the mandate. The committee has not given the mandates, the courts and the other regulatory agencies from affordable housing. For example, when it was explained that affordable housing typically is not spread out in small sites. If you go to other towns, in fact, there's 100, 200, 300 apartments in affordable housing. So I think there's a difference when the committee says they can't do something versus won't do something, when they're unable to do something versus unwilling. So I would hope that just like we say we want to be heard as the citizens, I think we have to also be receptive to listening to what the committee is saying. And because they are trying to explain things, it doesn't mean they're not being transparent. There may have been some perceptions of lack of transparency in the past. Maybe there actually was lack of transparency in the past. But I really think now we're almost, not where the affordable housing is going, but in general, this us against you type mindset is counterproductive at this point. I hope the resolution can be best made so the majority of the people in the town feel comfortable where the affordable housing goes, so that the neighbors that are coming into affordable housing feel welcomed. But I think we're just now speaking for the sake of being heard, and I do not think, in my opinion, that the committee has been treated in a fair way this evening. And that's my opinion, and I'm going to stick by it, even if I don't get applause, even if I get booed, because I feel very comfortable with my convictions, and I feel very comfortable that we are in a community where all different opinions, hopefully, are welcomed. And I just wish there was better listening to some of the nuances the committee are saying. I'm not saying you didn't, the committee at large might not have misstepped, might not have made some mistakes in judgment along the way, but now you're moving forward and you're under more and more constraints from the courts, and your hands are more tied. And I think that just has to be factored in as well. So I just, again, want to say I want to say that I'm supporting the fact that you're doing your best under the circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jackie Ferrito. I'm at 449 River Road. I just moved there. I bought a house there 15 months ago, and primarily because it's such a woodsy area. That's the reason I went there rather than Chatham Borough. So, of course, when I found out about this yesterday for the first time, I wasn't pleased. But that being said, I wanted to think about how we can make the best of a bad situation, since it sounds like it's a done deal. So the question that I have is kind of what's being done. I don't know much about the property, and I'm kind of new to this whole thing. What's being done in terms of the developer and in terms of putting the big building back? I drove up the Cardinal Hill lot today, and frankly, I didn't even know that huge building was there. So I don't know if it's possible on this lot, maybe everyone here knows this and I'm just new to this, but if it's possible on this lot to have kind of like a long driveway and maintain some of the trees and the forestry, or if that's completely impossible because it's too small of a lot, or kind of what the thinking is on that.
Sure. Well, we certainly are committed to make the best of that situation, and certainly to reassure as much as possible one of the people who spoke before you about the direct impact on her property. Mm-hmm. This will be half the number of units of Cardinal Hill, mm-hmm. for perspective. The intent is to put it as far back from the road as we can, and to keep as much of the tree buffer between mm-hmm. the road and the buildings as possible. Mm-hmm. We are certainly not at the design stage yet, and so there's really no artist renderings or anything that we can show you yet, mm-hmm. but we will be going through that stage.
And the township will be kind of overseeing all of that with the developer? We
will definitely be working very closely and having the final decision on design and placement decisions.
And how big is this lot versus like Cardinal Hill?
It is smaller than Cardinal Hill. This is 5.5 acres. Uh-huh. I don't know off the top of my head what Cardinal Hill is, but it's okay. Much larger than that. Okay. But I wish we had more details to share with you right now as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was a request earlier that we were a lack of transparency by not having more information tonight. We had to make a decision. We could either have delayed this kind of a conversation while we put together more presentation materials, or we could explain what we could explain now and continue to work forward going with materials that would continue to explain it more and more. Mm-hmm. And we felt that was the better way to go. That to talk about it to the extent that we have the information, let's get it out there. Mm-hmm. And then add to it from there. And for all those people who would like to have more detail right now, I apologize. It's just not available in a presentable format. We certainly have a lot of numbers and things that we need, and certainly a lot of good requests for how people would like to see and what they would like to see, and we will be mm-hmm. sharing that, definitely.
And this may be something that you also don't have yet, but I know it's a 62 kind of family units. Do we know how many bedrooms, like how many people are we talking in terms of traffic congestion and things like that? Is it 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, more?
There's a state formula that stipulates how many 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms there need to be in any affordable housing development like this. Mm-hmm. We are going to be using most of our 1-bedroom units to offset the group homes, which the state is considering the equivalent of 1 bedrooms. Mm-hmm. So these apartments will be almost exclusively 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
And also, just so you know, this process goes through the planning board. Mm-hmm. And if you followed, well, since you're new here, you probably didn't, but there was a long development phase and design phase for Dixie-Dale, for Arbor Green at the skate park. There were multiple design concepts made. There was a lot of people there from the public who were aware of what was being developed and what was being developed at both sites. And there was multiple site plans presented. There was right down to what the trim was going to look like, the color of the building, all of those things. And that all goes through the planning board process. And that's something that we have members who sit on the planning board. Mm-hmm. So it is our absolute desire to disturb that property as minimally as possible, to set it back off the road, to have it have an architectural style that would blend in with the community. And that's really what was done with Arbor Green and with Dixie Dale. So it's a long process. It's a very, the public can be involved in that process. So yeah.
Okay.
That's how that happens.
And I'll echo that, because having served on the planning board for probably about 10 years now, we've seen every development, small and large, scrutinized literally for its appearance, for its land use, for traffic studies, etc. In fact, former Mayor Nicole Hagner is currently still on the planning board, and under her tutelage over many years, we have really held construction feet to the fire. And this is a chance for the public. The meetings are all publicly noticed. You'll find the agendas on our website. And when this matter comes up, when a building application comes up, if it impacts you, you show up. Bring your family, bring your neighbors, let them know. When you said somebody knocked on your door and it was unbeknownst to you, well, you know what, then come on out and have a say in what goes on, seriously.
Yeah, I mean, on this one, I would hope, given how woodsy that area is and people have bought into that, I would hope that it maintains the woodsiness and is set back, just kind of like Cardinal Hill.
And the fact that you didn't even know Cardinal Hill was there, well, that's actually to everybody's credit. And now you know you'll have another structure that'll go there, but the plan really is not to make it a totally obtrusive kind of building, right?
Thank you.
Welcome to town. Sorry, this was your first experience with all of us. We're nice people.
Hello, everyone. My name is Frank Plantamoli. I'm at 436 River Road, and I am 1/4 of a mile from where the proposed 62 units is supposed to go. I just want you to see, look at me. My wife and I, Lucille, have been here 34 years, longer than probably most people. And we've been great citizens, I think. Ms. Schwartz knows us for years. We're devout Catholics. We believe in affordable housing and taking care of people. But you're looking at the face of the decisions you've made, not in haste, but quickly, because you had to make these decisions. And we counted on you guys to do the right thing, and you've done what you had to do. And I know you guys were caught between a rock and a hard place. You had to make this decision. But this is the face of, I'll be 65 years old in a month. Raised my 2 sons here. They went to private school. So I paid the taxes, no problem. My children never spent a day by their choice and our choice in Chatham schools. We moved here because they were the best schools in 1986. My wife is the president of the Board of Health here in the township. She sits here in meetings. She was not told. She was not informed. You know, the River Road site is back on the table, Lucille, just so you know. She's making decisions about septic systems, brand new septic systems on River Road, and no one's ever said to her, you know, Lucille, let's come back on the table. The problem is, I know you guys were caught between a rock and a hard place, and you had to make a decision. But it affects all of you guys today. The market was down another 1,000 points, okay? How did that feel when all your 401ks went down 10 or 15%? Like a kick in the gut, correct? All of you, okay? Well, I just find out my home, and we're hardworking, but we're not in the $3 million homes over in. So that's our major asset in retirement. And it just took a couple of $100,000 hit. That's what's happening. That's why we're so angry, because we didn't have a chance to defend our town, to defend River Road, where we've been for 34 years, which I love. And that's the, and you guys, I know it's hard. This is all political. It's all crazy. This stuff is out of control. But and my wife and I are the face of what's happening. And all these people who live across the street, this is their major, and it's just, so the way all of you felt today, you know, when the market went down and you lose 10 or 20% of your 401ks or whatever, that's how we feel, because now our major asset, or one of our major assets, is going to be no matter what you say, oh, no, it's going to be up in the hill. It's going, when somebody goes to look at your home, to buy that home, okay, I don't know where any of you guys live, but not a half a mile is there going to be 62 units of affordable housing with cars and things, and not to even say what it's going to do to River Road in terms of traffic, in terms of, just the mess. It's already a mess. It's already crazy with traffic, people who cut behind there so that's what, so I understand, and I agree with the young woman who said, you guys really are doing what you can. I know it's an impossible situation, but just look at us and say, wow, each one of you, look and say, if that's a half a mile from your house, what would you say? It's easy to say, well, that was our only, or it's not a half a mile from your, a quarter of a mile. A quarter of a mile.
I could throw a bowling
Across the street. So that's what you guys have to, again, Ms. Schwartz knows I'm a devout Catholic. I will do anything for someone else. But my family is affected. So, you have to look and see what it does. And I know, because that's why the decisions are impossible for you guys. Because someone has to be, and we are, River Road just became the sacrificial lambs. We got to sacrifice someone. Let the guys on River Road, they'll take the hit. They're not paying the big taxes. They're not in the big $2 and $3 million homes over in, and that's the thing too, is somebody probably said, not you guys, but somebody in the back room said, screw it. Do it to River Road. They're okay. They won't fight it. Because the people over here fought it. Now we're trying to not fight it, but just to be heard. So I know it's an impossible situation. Can't make everybody happy. But this is the face of what's going on and why we're so upset, because it's not just, this is my home. I've been here 34 years. I'm not here a year or two. 34 years, I've seen it when it was a sleepy bedroom community and you had to get off in Hoboken to get to the city. It wasn't even before everyone wanted to live here. So that's why I just wanted to say, no anger, just this is the face of the decisions you've had to make. And I know the government, the state has mandated you make them, but this is how it affects us. So you have to sort of walk in somebody else's shoes. Thank you for your time.
Nicole Hagner, 396 River Road. Just to this gentleman's point.
Before we go to a second round, people that have not spoken.
Oh, he can go. Yeah, that's fine.
No, our normal practice is to try to do a complete first round first. So just for regular policy, if anyone else would like to speak before we start our second round, please take advantage now.
Matt Kahn, Country Club Drive. First, I just want to say that my heart does go out to the... Sure. Is that better? Okay. First, I want to say that my heart does go out to the folks by River Road, and the woman from 475 River Road made a very impassioned speech, and it's heartfelt, and so it's a terrible choice that has to get made, and unfortunately, it seems like that's where it's landed. My sincere hope is that the property values honestly don't change all that much as a result of it, and that's my sincere hope. So I just wanted to say that first of all. My primary question is the 12 group homes, TBD. What's the time frame that you have to identify where those would go?
It's actually 3 group homes, each one with four beds in bedrooms. Okay. So we have to move very expeditiously on that. Our timetable allows us through the middle of June to come into full compliance, and if you work backwards from that on the group homes, we have to have them under our control, maybe not closed, but certainly contract signed before that. So we will be starting yesterday. We will be talking to interested people on that.
Sorry, so that's by June?
By June, we need to have a a signed contract with probably 3 different properties.
Okay, and what happens if you don't have those identified by June?
This, we have a schedule coming out of the mediation, which has benchmarks for all of these things we're talking about. And the court-appointed master is going to be making sure that we hit each of those preliminary benchmarks, because they don't want to hear that we got to June and are not where we need to be. We've asked for 3 and now 4 extensions, and the courts have given each one to us. But they've run out of patience, and they say, well, you know, we basically have demonstrated that we need this amount of time in order to execute. But we almost didn't get this last extension, and I have no hope of getting another.
Right. No, I'm sympathetic to the plight and the timing issue more than I think probably anybody. I understand the process very well, so I totally get that. But what happens? Where is there a backup that's been identified for those 12 units if you can't identify
I don't think
successfully the
that
group
there's
homes?
going to be a problem purchasing property in Chatham Township.
Okay.
You certainly can't drive around town without knowing that there are properties for sale. Some in states of repair and disrepair, some are vacant properties. So when it comes to finding parcels of land that are going to be suitable for the needs of these group homes, I don't think we're going to have too much of a problem.
Okay.
And that process has already started.
Okay.
There's
So you
already-
feel very confident that that will be identified?
Yeah, we've already started that process at the start of this. When we went back and started to look at the ways to amend the agreement, we looked at a desire to have group homes. One of the things that we brought up with our negotiating team was that we have a wonderful resource in the community, which is ECLC. There's 900 students at ECLC, and most of them are skewing towards the older ages. And as they have job placement and job skills and life skills training, there's no place for them to go. So that was not a part of the original settlement. And I'm over the moon that we were able to negotiate that and provide that to the special needs community. One of the other things that we looked to do during this time frame was to potentially look at senior housing. Senior housing wasn't a part of our settlement either. And we took too many bites of the apple on that because the settlement was for 100% family units, and they felt it was going too far away from the settlement agreement. But we were able to get veterans housing, a preference for veterans housing. So there were many different ways that we could better the settlement while still facing these constraints that we have with having to move. And one of the things with the senior part of it was that the senior part of it for this building would have matched the services at the senior center, would have brought this down to 2 levels, and that being taken off the table, as well as the time frame taking this off the table because we would have to build the other things. Those were all of those things were happening, including looking out at these sites for group homes.
Okay.
So I don't think that there's going to be an issue with group homes. And I don't know if it's wood over there. I'm going to knock on wood.
My last question goes back to Mr. Owen's point about the equitable distribution, and I'm sure that this will bear out in the spreadsheets and numbers that you guys have run for it. But the concept of putting anything here at the municipal building site, and I don't know the details about the acreage and plot plan and all that, and whether it's feasible or not, but if you were able to scale back the River Road development to say 42, I understand the concept of the 9% to the 4%. There's a cost there by doing it, and that's probably where it shakes out. But again, probably bears out in the spreadsheets. If there is an incremental cost, just what that number would be to put, say, 20 here, scale back the River Road site to 42, and then that way there is more of an equitable distribution. There's 24 at Arbor Green, 20 here, let's say, and 42 at River Road. And I'm sure that there's probably an incremental cost to that. I think it's a question of probably put to the town, which is what is everyone's feeling about doing that, even though it is incremental cost, to be more equitable on the face of it potentially, and whether that was explored and
We'll try to
discussed.
show that in a dollars and cents format on what the impact of that would be.
Just a thought, given everyone's comment about the equitable
Yeah, and
nature.
there was.
Yeah.
There was a look at, taking down 30, 30, 30. There was a plan about using part of the parking lot for 24 to 36 units and not having to redo the building. There was, re-looking at the skate park site and seeing what else we could do there. So there was a look at all of that, and the financing of it just drives the cost up by millions and millions of dollars.
Okay. Well, thank you. My last thing is just thank you to all of you for the hard work over the last few months. It's been, I understand the heavy burden and the work that was put into it, so I want to thank you all for your hard work there.
Elaine Davis, 822 River Road. These comments are principally addressed to Mrs. Ness. On February the 6th at the 3:30 p.m. meeting, my husband asked the question as to what traffic studies have been done in the township. Your response was that we know we have a problem with traffic, and you referenced a study done in 2017. Was this study done by the county, or are you referencing the traffic impact assessment done by Dynamic Traffic of Chester?
I was referencing the study that was done by our police department, that was requested by the county, and we're going to be doing that again in the spring.
Okay. At the February 6th meeting, you mentioned that Chatham was a pass-through town and that the majority of the traffic in Chatham was not from residents of the township. Then you went on to mention the traffic on Main Street in the borough and in Florham Park. Plus, you mentioned an exit from Florham Park to Route 24. All of this was very nice, but did not address the question posed by my husband about what traffic studies have been done. And then you said, well, we know we have a problem on Southern Boulevard due to the backup caused by the traffic light at Fairmount and Southern, and the other traffic light at Southern Boulevard and River Road. Earlier this month, I went to the municipal building to examine the traffic study done by Dynamic Traffic of Chester. This study was carried out on November the 28th, 2017. The date was very close to the Thanksgiving holidays, so I don't know how much we can rely on a study done so close to a holiday when there's less traffic, and a study clearly done to make the data look good for the Dixie-Dale developers. River Road was designated as an urban major collector highway. It's also a pass-by of Springfield Avenue in New Providence, saving people 5 lights to go from River Road to Long Hill. The study indicated that there is a high volume of traffic on River Road during the peak periods from 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. and 4:45 to 5:45 p.m. At those peak periods, the traffic flowing going east was 1,258 vehicles, and going west in the afternoon was 1,191 vehicles, and that was only at the bottom of Southern Boulevard and River Road. Those of us traveling west on River Road know the backup we face trying to make a left turn at the intersection of Passaic Avenue coming out of New Providence and with the cars coming east on River Road. When we finally are able to make that left turn, we wait in a long line of cars that are backed up at the light at River and Southern. Miss Ness, you previously lived at 744 River Road for almost 10 years. If you have gone past your former home, you will see a flashing traffic sign at your former house advising drivers of the 35-mile-per-hour speed limit. And you will have noticed the 2 little green signs saying, "Children at play." I also requested an Oprah report, and I hope I'm not the person that cost the township $2,000,
No, you weren't.
about the speed limit on River Road. and when it was reduced. The speed limit was reduced from 45 miles an hour to 35 miles an hour in 2003. But currently, from Southern Boulevard to Passaic, it is 40 miles an hour because that is considered a county road. The current speed limit from Passaic to the Long Hill line is a township road and is 35 miles per hour. There have been a total of 145 accidents on River Road in the past 5 years. At the intersection of River, Central, and Fairmount, there have been 29 accidents in the past 5 years, and we found it at our Saturday meeting that one of the people here, his wife, was T-boned at that intersection. With the possibility of affordable housing on River Road, you can be rest assured that there will be more accidents and disregard for the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit on River Road. And according to the New Jersey Department of Transportation, traffic increases 1.75% a year, and with the new River Road affordable housing, you're going to have at least 100 more cars on River Road. I strongly suggest that your spring traffic study include River Road, not only for the number of vehicles, but for the inclusion of another flashing sign in the east direction as the cars coming flying off the hill from Long Hill. There is no speed limit sign on River Road in the east direction until one at 841 River Road. Before that, the only 35-mile-an-hour sign is in Long Hill Township, 0.7 miles from the Henry Drive sign. Thank you for your attention.
Hi, my name's Alan Apria. I live at 24 Chestnut Road. I actually moved to Chatham Borough in 1964 and moved to my current location in 1991. It's the first time I've ever felt compelled to start coming to town meetings. I applaud that you relooked a decision that was going to cost a lot of money to the town and probably cause me a negative impact. You'd think I'd be happy because I dodged a bullet, but I'm really not, because we've just kind of moved the problem somewhere else. I feel for these people that live on River Road. You know, I've kind of heard some of the history, probably not necessarily what really happened, but what people think happened. It does seem like there's been a bit of maybe obfuscation of facts that could have been relevant to making a decision a little bit better. I applaud, I support the idea of affordable housing. I support increasing the diversity of this town. Obviously, in 1964, this town was not very diverse. We've increased that, although in some ways we've lost it because we don't have housing for seniors. They all move away. We don't have housing for young couples that are childless. You know, we've sort of become a factory town, and our product is college students. So if you're not invested in that particular commodity, you know, maybe Chatham's not the place for you anymore. I'd like to support increasing the diversity. But the bottom line is you have to figure out something that's equitable to all the neighborhoods in Chatham. You know, perhaps if there really are demonstrable tax impacts to neighbors of that in that area, there should be tax abatements or something to whoever gets negatively impacted, with the rest of the town bearing some of that burden because, you know, they've escaped the idea of having like a whole bunch of units in their area. I agree that traffic is terrible. As a matter of fact, it's much fewer miles for me to drive through the township or drive down to 24 to get to work. I basically go up Myersville Road and cut through the swamp just to avoid the whole problem. I can't imagine how much worse that's going to be. I know I'll continue my practice of coming up Myersville. Once again, I applaud that you relooked the bad decision. I hope that when the next round of these things comes up, it is way more, you know, public in how these decisions are made, and that they try to distribute some of this stuff throughout, you know, all the neighborhoods, all the affected areas in Chatham Township. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Erin Virgo, Candace Lane. I just wanted to ask for clarification on a couple things. I know in the past it was talked about moving the police department here. I'm assuming you guys talked about that more in And why is, the reason for that is, I think I know the answer, but the police department's not coming here because,
It triggered some extra expenses
That's
in order to redo this building to allow it. It was not well received by the majority of people who spoke about it. There was concern raised by people in the audience that there were schools particularly, and the commercial area would not be as well covered.
even though the patrol cars, I mean, the police are out patrolling. They're not sitting at the police department
Correct.
waiting to slide down a pole when an alarm goes off.
That was our response, and our feedback from the police department was that that was not a serious problem from their point of view, that it would not affect safety and patrolling. That did not convince the people who continue to say that it was a perception thing on their part. So, I mean, that was not the decision maker, but I mean, I just relaying the
I expected to hear, there was a cost. I got that part. But if we did move the police department here, we could put more affordable housing at the police department site.
Yes.
So Mrs. Ness, or Deputy Mayor Ness, I think we're putting money into the skate park in its current location?
No.
Okay. Can you just repeat what you said before about the skate park? Because I think I misunderstood.
That we're able to save the skate park. We're not going to be knocking down the skate park. We're going to be able to leave it for current use. And that tomorrow I'm meeting with a skate park group who is looking towards the next version of the skate park.
In the same location?
I don't know.
Okay. Because, I mean, it would seem to me that, and I've spoken out about, saving this gym for our kids, and I want the kids to have what's best, but I also feel awful for these people that are faced with losing everything they have because we're going to put a 62-unit apartment building across the street from their house. And you're the first person I thought about when I read the article, and I know you spoke at the last meeting, and I don't like snakes, and you like snakes, but I can appreciate everything that you said. And I mean, come on, talking about saving people's houses versus saving a skate park. It doesn't sit well.
I'm sorry, what?
I feel like
making?
I feel like what you're saying is you're meeting with somebody to talk about the skate park, and we're considering potentially putting money into it in its current location. Maybe I'm missing something.
No.
Okay. I guess I'm missing something. Okay. It doesn't seem fair. I mean, I love the idea of the skate park and the kids having the skate park, but
there's no equivalency to being able to save that portion of the land and working with the skate park group to figure out what their desire is for the next iteration of the skate park group has anything to do with moving the site to River Road.
So it just seems...
It's a kind of a false equivalency that you're making there. So it was a comment...
I don't think I'm the only one making it. I really don't think I'm the only one making it.
I'm sorry if it was misconstrued.
It seems to me, are we putting money into the skate park so that we don't have... So that we can't put any more affordable housing there in the future? It's near shopping. It just seems to me...
No. Let me restate this. Part of the results of this plan are that we didn't have to use the skate park site for this round. That's still something that may be used in the next round.
Okay.
It is a part of the land that we owned. We don't know what the next round is going to bring. Right now, we don't have to use it. That's it.
We don't have to, but if we did, we could do what we've been asking for, which is a fair and equitable distribution.
I don't know. The skate park itself is in a wetlands buffer area from the...
Didn't that get set back? Didn't something change with that?
I'm sorry?
I thought something changed with that.
We got a rollback of the distance of the wetlands buffer, but it still goes right across the skate park. The limitations on using the skate park for affordable housing are significant. We probably could get some there, but
some is how many?
But they would be
about 10.
It would be very limited.
9 or 10, I think.
So
Mr. Owen just told me if you move the police department, you get 32
Yes,
units
you
there.
started off asking about moving the police department. That's on the other side of where the Arbor Green apartments we built. And that would open up a bigger footprint and could conceivably add the potential of more units. I think that the spreadsheets that we would show would be that would, moving the police department up here would add a significant expense to that move, and also reducing the number.
How much per household
60,
in Chatham?
Reducing the number below 60 would also add a number which would be in several millions of dollars in terms of the potential financing for any of our projects.
So what's the cost per household in Chatham?
Cost per household in Chatham for what?
If there's an additional cost to move it here, what does that trickle down to be for each taxpayer? I'm just curious, because I'd pay it.
I think the tougher constraint, because I asked the same question when we were in executive session in terms of where can we move things. The tougher constraint, certainly there's the cost. You put that back to the community. Do you want to spend this much? The other problem was the courts weren't going to accept an extended construction schedule. So that was the other problem, that we had to tighten up our construction schedule, because they went to talk to when they went to mediation, they talked about dates and had an extended construction schedule initially to get stuff done, and that was not acceptable.
Christina Mott, 22 Nicholson Drive. I have a couple statements and then a question. I just want to say that I know that you've done a lot of hard work to find the best solution for our current citizens and those who will move here, so I thank you for that. I hate to come up here to complain about past problems, but I really have to say it's very frustrating to listen to the comments being made that ignore why we cannot afford a multi-site plan. My understanding is that an ordinance for collecting developer fees was passed in 2008, around then, but the fees were not collected at all. And we had a building boom of about 300 homes in Chatham Township over the past 10 years. So we don't have the money set aside to do what everyone here is asking for, which is a multi-site plan, which I think is really a shame. My question is kind of unrelated. It's based on the statement put out yesterday. I've kind of lost track of the action that's being delayed with the extension until June 19th. And if the agreement that's been presented is approved on the March 13th court date, I believe it is, then what does that extension mean? Is that the deadline when all the plans need to be approved by either the committee or the planning board, or what is that deadline now? Because it sounds like we kind of, or is it just the designation is being delayed until June 19th?
Albert, could you explain the legal steps that need to be done, or at least the highlights of the legal steps that have to happen between now and June?
Because this is 100% municipally sponsored development.
Sure.
It means the municipality must control the property.
Yes.
The schedule calls for a compliance hearing to be scheduled in the last 2 weeks in June. So that means the municipality has to have control of the property and demonstrate that it is able to proceed forward. So part of what we have until June is to get into compliance, to be able to prove our case at the compliance hearing.
Okay.
And with that, there are a lot of steps that have to be taken. Many of them are planning steps. And so, as was said before, this matter will continue to be before the Township Committee and then at the Planning Board. But what is being extended is the compliance period until essentially the compliance hearing sometime in the last 2 weeks in June. There will be a period after that for developers to go through the planning process and get the necessary approvals, again, as has been described. And that entails, on the 13th of March, the judge is not approving a plan, he's approving a compliance schedule.
Okay.
It is at the compliance hearing in June that the plan is approved. And the judge holds a hearing as to whether or not the plan is fair to low and income moderate residents.
Okay. So compliance would be kind of a bird's eye view of the plan, and then after that, then you would have more of the detailed planning discussions in planning board, and more of the nitty-gritty details would take place after that. It doesn't have to be done by
No,
June
you don't
19th.
have to have approval for the development by June.
Okay.
But for
okay.
example, the Township Committee and the Planning Board have to look at a master plan, a part of the master plan called the Housing Element and Fair Share Plan.
Yes.
That will be coming up to the Planning Board sometime in the beginning of March.
Okay.
There will also be an opportunity if the mayor has said several times, this is a tentative agreement.
No, I
Hasn't
understand
been
that.
fully reduced to writing. That agreement also has to come before the Township Committee for approval.
Right.
But there are a series of steps, the housing element. Part of this has also been a discussion regarding pilot programs and conveying property. One of the predicates to having a pilot program is having a property designated as an area in need of redevelopment and a redevelopment plan. The redevelopment plan, it's the same process that occurred for the skate park. There was a redevelopment plan prepared for the skate park, which is like a zoning ordinance and dictates how that development will look. The number of stories, the setbacks, the number of parking spaces, all those details you see in a site plan review. So the township is really not approving that. All it's saying is the schedule is the process to get to a compliance hearing and be able to show that the township is able to move forward with what it's committed to in terms of affordable housing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Good evening. This is Mike Mopsovich from 3 Sycamore Drive. I just have a couple of comments and maybe questions are built into those comments. Having watched this over the last 3 months, it's become pretty clear that we've all been focused on spreading this around. Trying to have smaller units scattered around the township as opposed to in one, or two places. But it seems like in reality there are a lot of challenges to doing that. Whether it be having the properties properly managed at an affordable price, whether it be getting financing long-term, and I don't know if these financing rules are going to change as we go from round 3 into round 4. But I think, and I don't know his name, the man here in the green sweater made a very good point about, evaluating places in the township where there is less residential presence and maybe focusing our efforts in round 4 there. So I just wanted, for everybody's benefit, maybe to just call into question this idea of, is spreading it around the right way to ultimately preserve as much of what we love about Chatham Township, as opposed to maybe finding the best place to put this, because Chatham Township's going to change, right? I mean, what has really come to us, we've all benefited to some extent by the lack of motion historically, because we haven't had to deal with this issue. I've lived here for over 20 years now, too, and this is a new issue for me, even living in New Jersey, right? I mean, you just didn't realize that this reality was coming to your doorstep, and now it's here. So I think, I don't know what the next steps are for the Planning Commission, how this committee works with the Planning Commission, but to figure out, are we reevaluating the rules about development in this township in a way that's going to allow us to accommodate what sounds like about another 200 units over the next 3 to 5 years as a new mandate. Then maybe they're not built until later in the 2020s, but we have to deal with that idea. So I think that's, my thinking on this is changing a little bit. Maybe it's better to do something that's more condensed. We're going to have at least 60 units to get the good financing. So if we're all around here tilting at windmills trying to find a 20 unit spot here, 20 unit spot there, and then it's not going to be economically feasible, then not. I do also agree with other comments here that there are different ways to share the burden. One way is to spread it around, as Mike has advocated for a long time. Another way is to economically spread it to those people who aren't being impacted. So if there is, in fact, we get reassessed every few years, my property value either goes up or down or it doesn't change, whatever. Now, if people's property values are being impacted by this, we should look at that property value, and we should reduce their taxes to make sure that they're not, unfairly bearing the burden of this, right, in more than one way. And my last thought is just totally separate and about traffic and mundane and little, but, if you tried to get from where I live, right off of Fairmount on Myersville, to the township in the morning, any given morning you'll encounter 2 or 3 lawn care trucks, construction vehicles, you've got the buses. I don't understand why we permit people to block lanes on Fairmount and Southern and on River Road during peak rush hour. It's nonsensical, and it can actually add literally 5 to 7, 10 minutes to get into the township. So I would ask you guys to consider some type of ordinance that would not permit these guys to do it. We don't let people turn left off of Fairmount down into the section below the Highlands. And why shouldn't we have those guys go do their work in the morning there instead of right on Fairmount or right on Southern or right on River Road? So those are my thoughts.
Okay.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, before the next speaker, I just have a point to follow up to those questions. This plan brings the municipality, if approved by the court, through compliance through July of 2025. And this plan essentially covers a 25-year period from 1999 to 2025. So the 98 units that are being discussed as being constructed brings you through 2025. Then you go into the next round, and I believe you may have stated this as part of your opening remarks, and that is this period is an opportunity for government at the local level and citizens to reach their representatives, their state elected representatives, their senators and assembly representatives, and ask for a statewide solution to affordable housing as opposed to it being left to individual municipalities. So I think there is a period to consider these comments that are being made as proactive planning for 2025. But if the plan is ultimately approved by the court at the end of June, it's valid until the year 2025, July of 2025. During that process, you will have to start planning for the next round, but citizens should also contact their representatives to try to get a legislative solution to this problem, or to these issues, and not be left solely at the hands of municipalities.
That would certainly be a smarter regional way to do it. So I certainly would extend that request to everybody who is concerned that you do reach out to the District 27 representatives and ask them to please give us a hand.
And we'll be doing that too. I think this process was fraught with issues. And that having all towns build affordable housing at the exact same time, with most towns going for market rate, with 800, 1,000 units, 600 units, all around us. I think the only town in our immediate vicinity is Madison that is going 100% with the municipal option. They only have to build, I think, 40 units because they've built over time. They have about 225 units of affordable housing as opposed to our 72 units. But it's incumbent upon us to, we've learned the lesson that you have to start the planning much earlier, that you have to have a master plan that meets those needs, that looks at what future development is going to be. And we have to start as early as possible to anticipate whatever the needs are going to be in this fourth round. And I think you're going to see a lot of municipalities who are going to kind of look at changing the process, because building all at once without regards to infrastructure or schools or roads or all of those things is really a terrible process. So it's incumbent upon us as well to get involved in that planning process at the municipal level, at the county level, and at the state level to really change the process for the fourth round so that it works for municipalities, not against us.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yes,
Tracy.
Nicole.
396 River Road, Nicole Hagner. Just to touch on what Mike was saying, I don't really think we got an answer to his question. I guess March 13th or whatever this date's coming up, Mayor Kelly, why couldn't you, in whatever that meeting is, look at having a flexible, at least, agreement with the judge to potentially look at limiting the number on River Road? I don't think we really got an answer to your question. Like, why is it, and I think even at the planning board, and I do sit on the planning board, we were quite clear as not wanting 71 in one location. So why couldn't we do that during this discussion with them? And I mean, certainly we can get 12 more right now down at the skate park area, right? Because that's what you have in the note you put out. So we could certainly reduce the River Road project by 12 now. But if there was an option, because I agree, I don't think anybody's asking, Tracy, to have 10 places all over town to do it, and to some of the other gentlemen, that's not cost effective. I mean, but certainly we're only putting 24 at the skate park. So, I mean, something like a 20 or a 30, in a couple locations, or maybe just 2 and divide the 2 locations would certainly be more palatable and equitable. It might cost a little bit more, I appreciate it, and I totally appreciate trying to keep the cost down. It's not easy, and I get it, I sat on that side too, going through the other rounds. But I don't know why we can't now say this is, if even this is what you're considering, to consider an alternate, right, if it comes up, you're still building the units. So why isn't that possible?
The expense, I'd say, goes off a cliff, except that it rises instead of falls. When you drop below the threshold, the financing gets, your project gets a score when you put it in for the financing, and it's a very competitive score, so that the top scoring projects get the 9% financing, and the ones that don't, and they get a dramatically lower financing at 4%. So the penalty for not having the highest scoring or among the highest scoring projects is severe. It is millions of dollars per project. We looked seriously at how we could work our way around that, and we came up with some options of group homes, but we certainly went into this with the prepared, basically, to spend a reasonable amount more money in order to get the best possible plan we can get. And we are not trying to cheap out on this. We are going to spend a significant amount of money on this, and we are committed.
But then couldn't you let the residents decide then? Like, couldn't we put it up for referendum on how much more is the equitable, like, what would be the tax burden for people? Why not?
We will present an analysis of that at the next meeting, so we can lay it out there.
I know, but in the interim, couldn't we then at least have the option to reduce the number at River Road if the residents were supportive of that?
I think
that's what people are asking. People just want to, sort of feel like it's. I appreciate you're listening. I don't think you're not listening, right? And I know it's difficult, but it doesn't sound like it, right? And so why not then make sure that this agreement with the court if we come up with a thing, or we want to put 40 down there and we know it's going to cost more and we're not going to get all the benefits or the credits, that's what we want to do for our community, because it's what's best for our community. It's best planning.
I agree with you 100%. And I think that if the skate park footprint was a clear improvement, I think that we would still be looking at that as a real possibility.
Well, you could certainly put 12 more down there.
I'm sorry?
You could certainly put 12 more down there, and we could have maybe considered it. I actually think, to your point earlier, Tracy, yes, the planning board is involved, but, there's a lot of limitations to what the planning board can and can't do when it comes to affordable housing and projects. So I don't want people to think that the planning board's going to save the day for these 62 units. We don't really have a lot of say. And we actually had a very nicely designed affordable housing unit down at Arbor Green that got changed in a matter of like 2 weeks before, after 8 months of planning, that got, everybody voted yes for it except me, because it went from 2 nicely appointed buildings to 1 rectangular, you could argue looks like a barracks building down there. And I, certainly don't think the River Road residents want that either. So the planning board doesn't have a lot of say when it comes to it.
Nicole, you're right. I think that was an unfortunate development, and had we known about the police building, we wouldn't have run into that problem where the whole skate park site had to be redesigned. Unfortunately, we found out about the police department and the revisions that were needed to the police department in August.
But we could have paused, like was suggested.
And I think that one of the things that, for me personally, was a bit of a miss was that Dixie-Dale was willing, the developers for Dixie-Dale were willing to build a lot more housing on the skate park site.
Yeah, up to 100 units, I heard.
Through the process, it was negotiated down from 50 units, even 75 units, down to 24 units. So that would have been a free to us. So that process happened over a period of 3 years. And it was, in my personal opinion, and I got up in your place when this was going on, and I spoke out about it at that time, that was a real missed opportunity. That the Dixie-Dale property itself was 30 acres, Dan, I think you pointed that out, that could have been used for affordable housing. There's another additional 6 acres that Sterling owns across from Dixie-Dale that could have been used as well. So
Yeah,
I don't believe
we looked at trying to get that part of the deal, but it didn't work. The planning board didn't have much say.
That process happened, as you're saying, in the best interest and with the planning that was necessary for the township.
But I do think that we should
here
consider, Tracy, at least when you guys are in negotiations, trying to make it a more flexible arrangement, because I think that the residents would be open to trying to, understand the balancing of costs, and I totally, everybody appreciates that, right? We're here to try to save the taxpayers' money. But I think that, also trying to make a good project and something that makes sense for the community. And certainly what Dan's proposing is obviously the much better plan, which I appreciate you might not have time for, given the constraints, but obviously that's a much better ideal plan, and even closer to the police department, not in a residential area, when you're looking at this type of density in development complexes, and not putting it in anybody's neighborhood.
Yeah, I think
but, so I don't know,
there's a
can
real
we do that? I
opportunity.
don't know who can answer that. I mean, can,
I
Albert
would
Cruz
hate-
answer it?
I don't think that I would want to leave the public with the impression that putting more units on the macadam of the skate park is an ideal solution. There is a wetlands buffer that restrains that site to just the pavement itself, and it would be surprisingly close to the building of Arbor Green when it goes up, and it would be diamond shape, corner on to that building, so it would look peculiar, and the development would be denser than anybody would like.
Or we could go back to the first development plan with the 2 buildings and look at options there.
That is no longer possible.
Well, yeah, it doesn't seem like anything's possible, unfortunately, and, I feel for all the residents who had to, go through things to thinking it's here, and now it's just, even a shorter notice, and now everybody on River Road is, obviously concerned, and has had no time to process it, and, does unfortunately feel like nobody's listening, unfortunately, so, but thank you.
Michael Ian, 3 Hillcrest Avenue again. To me, this just doesn't hold together. The difference between 9% and 4% is 5%. The total development cost of Arbor Green is $4.7 million. Say it's $5 million. 5% of $5 million is $250,000. Where do you lose millions of dollars in funding by going to a smaller 24-unit development? You may have to subsidize the developer to have him take on that project, and I agree, I don't have any idea what that cost is. But the loss of state funding is not a big factor. It just isn't. And then the other thing, when we were talking about group homes, you said, oh, we have until mid-June to buy property for group homes. Well, if you have that much time to buy group home property, why don't you have that much time to buy alternative property for, as an alternative to having 62 at River Road? Supposing you find a property you could put 20 on. Wouldn't you have until mid-June to buy that property? That's a question.
Okay, no, I'd be happy to answer it. We have a schedule that runs from now till June with the kinds of legal deadlines that our attorney explained. Most of those apply to the site that would be the River Road site, because it requires a lot more preparation and planning and approvals.
Sure.
Now, the group homes are fairly simple. You look for a house that's for sale, that's in a location that works, and you buy it. I mean, it's a totally different order of magnitude. So, you know, it's that's. I hope that explains the difference.
Okay, but let me put it this way. I'm not proposing that this happen, but supposing you move the police department to this building. We were told on the 30th by John Rushke that the cost of moving here versus upgrading that building to requirements is roughly a wash. Okay? So if you move the police department here, as opposed to fixing it there, it costs about the same. If you move the police department here, it opens up space for what John Rushke said would be 32 units at the police department site. Now, what is the added cost of doing those 32? You own the land. Maybe you don't get as efficient state funding, but it's not going to be $1 million difference. I don't see where you're saying that it's going to cost millions of dollars more to have maybe 40 units on River Road and 30 units or 20 units somewhere else. I just don't see it. It doesn't add up. And so what, you know, this is the problem with you doing your planning in secret. You know, because you don't have anybody looking over your shoulder, you do your best, you come up with a plan, and then I think you try to oversell it. I really don't think it would have cost that much more to do a multi-site plan. I just can't see it. So what I would like to have you do is in the agreement you're working up, leave the option open to have alternative sites to the River Road site be still considered. And sure, you have a development schedule that has to be made, but open it up to the public to allow them to see what they can come up with, because quite frankly, I don't get it, okay? I just don't get it.
Okay, we'll try to explain it with some numbers as soon as we can.
And maybe Saturday you can explain it to me better, but right now I don't get it. That's just what I wanted to say.
Mr. Mayor, as a point of order,
Sure.
just Mr. Owen, the difference between 9% and the 4%, it's not just on the construction cost, it's on the overall value of the property, the parcel, and it also goes out over an extended period of time, a number of years. So when we do our presentation, we will show you that, but it's not, you know, it's not the simple math. 9 minus 4 equals 5%. So we'll show you that, you know, at a future date.
Yeah, it's not an interest rate, it's a tax credit.
Pardon?
It's not an interest rate, it's a tax credit. It's a developer's tax credit that they're getting.
Okay, I don't understand.
The 9% versus
I really don't understand what's going on.
Dan Miller, Green Village Road. You know, town has changed a lot since I was young, living here. And I'm not getting any younger, believe me. I had hair back then. You know, and I've seen a lot of things happen to us out in Green Village. and there's some people here who remember, you know, we lost our sewer capacity at one time. It was given away so that the people throughout the rest of the town and in Rolling Hill could have the opportunity to build those big houses where we had to use septic, where we had to put raised mound systems in and lose portions of our property and so on. We also just had, just at the end of the year, and I don't remember what the name of the ordinance was, where now if you redevelop to a certain extent or if you develop new property, the tax burden is going to be higher. I think, what, 1.5% was it? I don't quite remember. I'd have to look at the ordinance again. But another burden upon someone like me and my family who has interests in multiple pieces of property in the township. You know, those processes, in particular the septic issue and the sewer issue, cost my family a few $100,000 in equity easily, okay? So will this ordinance to help pay for the affordable housing, because, you know, there was a nice article in the TAP about Craftsman Homes that I read today. Well, I live in one. My grandfather built it in 31, okay? You know, Mom lives down the street and we have another piece of property. So when those pieces with existing homes on them get redeveloped, they're going to cost more than everybody else in the past, along with the septic systems we have to put in as well. So what my question becomes, and where I feel for everybody, you know, who lives there, I think these people spoke eloquently of how they're going to be hurt. I think it behooves the township to not treat these folks the way that we've been treated in Green Village in the past and start out anew. You know, make an assessment of what it's going to do to the properties around. You know, if in fact it affects their property values, treat these people just as well as you're going to treat the new folks that we're welcoming in town. You know, give them a little bit of cash to offset what it's going to cost them. Lower their tax rate. If you can in one swoop of a pen say that if you add X amount onto your existing home in a rebuild, your tax assessment is going to be 1.5%, well, why don't you lower theirs by 1.5%? Okay, and why don't you offset the cost of what they're going to lose in the equity in their home, which, you know, hopefully they are not at the senior age yet, but people tap into the equity of their home so they can stay in Chatham Township and live in Chatham Township, you know, because they love it here in Chatham Township. Why don't you make it easier for them as well? You know, we talk about welcoming everybody else. How about we keep welcoming the citizens that we have here as well?
Dan, we are committed to development that has the least possible impact on neighbors, and we hope to make that as tiny as possible by making it as attractive as possible. You know, certainly more attractive than Cardinal Hill, which is virtually next door and which is already there in the neighborhood. We are cognizant of the situation that you described for yourself. When you make the point that the tax rate and the impact and the suffering that causes for people across town, we are very aware of that, and we are conscious of the cost of this issue. So we're trying to balance both the cost but legitimate expenses that would make it better. And then number three is if there turns out to be a decrease in the value of a property across the street, we have a lot of trust in our tax assessor that will be caught and will be adjusted. So I think your points are well taken, and they will be pursued.
I've got a comment and a question. Peter Nigro, River Road. You said that this is 5.5 acres on River Road that you're going to put the 62 units. I don't know how much thought went into the traffic impact, but living there now and watching the traffic now without those 62 units is mind-boggling. You're going to have to put traffic lights for 62 units to get out at rush hour. And you're going to have only one entrance and exit side, that's River Road. The 30 acres at Dixie-Dale, if I have Dixie-Dale right, Hillside, River Road, you've got an egress and an entrance on both. I don't understand why the 30 acres, rather than cram 62 and 5.5 acres, that 30 acres can't be used. And my brain stopped because I can't remember what the other thing was. But it's upsetting to us. And it just doesn't, it's not common sense practical. Now, as far as the money goes, certain things may cost more, but it's like living life. You go out with your wife to buy something and you say, oh, this is half the price, let's get this. No. I don't want a Fiat. I want a big luxury Buick. You get the big luxury Buick. Well, right now, we're looking for the big luxury Buick then, because the flavor of the town is going to diminish greatly by putting large units like that. That's it. But why not the 30 acres?
Dennis Williams, 414 River Road.
Why not the 30 acres?
I think you folks need to go back to the drawing board and find another location other than River Road. 51-year resident, my mom lives next door, same deal. We don't want to see this crap. Go back to the drawing board. You can bulldoze that skate park for all I care. Move the police station here, simple. That's it. You can pack them in over there, 4 stories. Make a waiver, wetlands waiver, and you can pack them in. We don't want them on River Road, period. Don't do it. I don't know what else to say to you people. If it was across from your house, it wouldn't be happening, any one of you. And you know it. You know it. You can look at me and it's true. So do something about it. You sneak this thing in, seems a little underhanded. You're going around asking people if they want to sell their property right next door. You don't think that sounds shady? You got an answer?
I don't feel I've done anything shady.
Well, it seems like it to a lot of people here. Okay? So that's where we stand. We don't want it on River Road. It's going to diminish the site. It's a rural area. And we want to keep it that way. You understand?
Very good.
So, you got time. Dig up something else. That's all I got to say.
Smita Raghuveer, Candace Lane. I know we've talked about traffic. I know we've talked about all the multi-site options. I think my main question here is about schools. I have a middle schooler now and a kid who is right out of SBS going into Lafayette. We have one middle school, one high school with between Dixie-Dale and the affordable housing. So I just want to know if there was a study done about all the impacts it has on multiple schools and how it would affect all the kids that are already going to the school.
We did do that, a study on the school impact. I'm not going to be able to pull numbers off the top of my head. The context is that the school system's own study, I believe, shows a 250 student decrease over the next 5 years. And this is separate from this development. So they are projecting a declining student enrollment, and the numbers that we projected from these developments was significantly smaller than that 250. So we've been working with the Board of Ed and the school officials and keeping them posted Um, there's, we can.
No, but I think the question is, I know SBS is at its max, right? We have so many kids in SBS right now. So I'm trying to understand here. So the units that you're going to put on River Road, or be it at this locality, so how would it work? They would all end up in SBS, or, I mean, I know we have one middle school and one high school, but how does it work with the elementary schools? Would they all end up in SBS? I mean, because right now everybody living on this side of the town, we send our kids to SBS. So you're expecting a decrease in enrollment in SBS? I see so many things built around the town right now.
I'm talking about district-wide. That would be a decision by the Board of Ed. I do know that that the far side of town, they do bus to Washington, I believe. So they adjust to get the best situation
so this
across their district.
decision was to put it on the side of the town or wherever, right? Is it along, I mean, the Board of Ed knows that they need to accommodate so many kids who would enroll?
And I'm desperately looking for this right now, but Bob met with Peter Tequila, who is the business administrator, and we used the statistics from the Rosevale, which I believe has one student coming from Rosevale, which was the 53 development over by Hickory Tree. Used the analysis from the 72 units at Vernon Grove, looked at the units at Chatham Hill and Cardinal Hill for rentals to see how many students those produce. And I don't want to misquote the figures, but we did that analysis with the school district. I went over these numbers with the Board of Education President Jill Weber as well. And there was confidence in those numbers.
And these studies are on the website that I could go and...
I think it's in the facts. I've got 3 million things.
Yeah, because
I know that the school system's demographic study is on their website, that if you wanted to look up for the...
No, with the impact or the affordable...
I think it was 50. I think out of both developments, I believe that we said that there was going to be the potential for the addition of 50 students. Right now...
Have we looked at other towns, like what is the typical demographic?
That's
I mean,
where the figures are coming from.
Yeah.
From the other towns?
The figures are coming from surveys that are done across all of the demographic. When you bring in multifamily dwellings, the impact on a school population.
Okay.
We didn't just come up with these numbers out of Chatham experience because we have very little experience.
Exactly, yeah.
So we're relying on other communities, other school districts to provide the impact of multifamily dwellings on a school district. You also have to keep in mind when you're talking about anything beyond grade 3, whatever we're solving for with Chatham Borough.
Right.
Because they're building their own, and they're building an entirely different
From Arbor Green and Dixie Dale.
paradigm than we in Chatham Township are.
Yeah, I mean, one of the main things about Chatham is the schools,
That's
right?
all
I
well
mean,
good. That's
and
what
then...
we're all here for. We raised our kids here.
Exactly.
Absolutely, 100%. But we're faced with a situation that's entirely unique, that with what we're doing here in Chatham Township, with perhaps, I believe you're correct, in your number about 50 students.
I think it was 50.
That number is standing out in my mind as well, because if we're talking about 98 units producing 50-odd school children, you take a look at what the borough is building, and anything beyond grade 3 is going to impact Lafayette Avenue School and the middle school in Chatham Heights.
Yes, definitely.
So we are trying our absolute best to make sure that we have those figures and that the school district is on board with what's going on. Certainly, 2/3 of our tax dollars all go towards making sure the school districts have what they need.
Exactly.
So we are all in the same boat, and our concerns are your concerns, because we have, all of us with our kids who have grown through this school district, we have been there, and we feel for you 100%. We're doing everything we can.
All right,
So I think to Mrs. Ness's figure, that 50 is the approximate number. As far as Dixie Dale, with the 53 units there, we're looking at virtually single digit in student body impact, same as
Well,
You can say, you can be as skeptical as you want, but if you drive over to Ace Hardware and see how many kids come out of Ace Hardware to that development there by Green Village, none, like one student. So.
well,
You can be
it's
skeptical, I sense
yes,
your skepticism, but
yes.
you should try it. You should go over and take a look.
All
How
right,
many
I
kids are
mean,
playing in this
because,
street? Big
I
jump.
mean, the Chatham Township is not getting smaller, it is getting bigger, right? So, yeah.
But if you circle around to what I was talking about back at the start of this conversation about why we went with the municipally sponsored route instead of the builder's route, because we didn't want to build 4 market rate units for every 1 affordable unit. So that's why we are doing this smaller number, because impact on schools is an expense every year, year after year after year. And if we have to spend some extra money up front as a one-shot thing, that was a decision we made, and we think it's the right decision for the township.
All right, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Willa Carlson, River Road, right across, so we're seeing those buildings when they come. I just want to say thank you to all of you who stayed so long. I'd like to say thank you to those who had some very heartwarming response for us, because sometimes I really feel like we're just, I don't know what, at the end of the line, and not too many people really care about what happens. I'd like to just bring up a little bit. Oh, okay. I like to be half and half. Anyway, can you hear me better now? Okay.
You should be making your comments to the township committee.
I'm sorry, what? I was thanking these people for staying and thanking these people for their comments. So that really is something directed, I think, to them. And now I'll speak with you, and I'll turn this a little bit this way.
Thank you.
I actually would like to refer perhaps to some of the safety issues that we see, having lived where we are for about 45, not quite 50 years. And I already spoke in terms of water coming down the hill, cascading down the hill. In the winter, that freezes. There's ice along the gutters. There's ice into the roadway. In warmer weather, when we have that ice cascading down the hills, it goes, some of it underwater for underground, under road drainway into the river, and some of it just floods the river, floods the road as it is. So the one thing I wanted to bring up, and if you live there, you may be aware of the fact that the bridge from New Providence every so often is closed. You cannot drive from Morris County across to Union because of the extreme flooding. This plan to put these units on the hill will only increase the water that's going into the river. And in the master plan from 2011, they talk about not conflicting with the general welfare of neighboring municipalities. So what we actually will be doing will be increasing the water that increases the road flooding, increases the time that the bridge is closed because more water is filtering down that way.
Ma'am, are you talking about the bridge that connects Passaic to downtown New Providence?
Right.
Which is going to be replaced this spring. The whole bridge, that's adding a little bit of, that bridge has been in the planning stage now for a couple of years.
Well, then hopefully it will eliminate the flooding, which is not directly at the bridge.
That is a well-known situation. So that bridge is going to be replaced, connecting us with downtown New Providence.
Okay.
Within
I'm
the
saying,
year
though, it's
2020.
not necessarily the flooding directly at the bridge, but for those houses within a block or 2 block area. They are the ones that really flood, sometimes can't get back into their homes or their driveways. I just also wanted to ask you, how is it that wetlands trump steep slope and erodible soil? Is that what I understand?
We had the same question. The process is such for affordable housing and the regulations of it is that when that the state will look to place affordable housing on steep slopes before they do in wetlands, and so that's the way their formula works.
So it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what happens to the hill or whatever.
Well, we are committed to design something that has the least impact possible. I mean, I think on the water situation, we will keep that in mind as it goes forward. There will be water control aspects to this development, and right now there are none. It's a empty slope, so everything comes off it.
Well, right now there are all those trees, plants, the roots that absorb a lot of the water as well. They're gone, then you've what, doubled, tripled, quadrupled the effect of the water problem?
The water control will definitely be part of the engineering of the plan.
All right, well, that's a positive thing to hear. I also just want to talk about accidents when we're talking about traffic. I know we're all aware of traffic. We had an ambulance hit in front of our house, so not only the heart attack patient in the ambulance had to be removed from the ambulance and transported by another ambulance, but then there were additional patients, so out-of-town ambulances had to be called in for that. To the right of us, a car coming from New Providence toward Berkeley Heights somehow lost control of his vehicle. He was on the lawn, through the hedges, almost to the front porch before he decided that he could make a swoop and escape. I happened to be out and gave him my best teacher glare, and he did not continue his attempt to escape. To the left of us, no, directly across from us, there was a car going also toward Berkeley Heights, somehow lost control. That went up, hit a retaining wall, over the retaining wall, and literally into a tree. You ask how these things happen. Who knows how they happen, why they happen, but they happen, and I think a part of it is because that's an open stretch. It's marked double lines, but what does that matter to drivers anymore? They do what they want to do because A, they look at their watch, B, they have to pick up children at school, C, they're late for work or late to get home for whatever it is. That area from not quite Cardinal Hill, but past the firehouse seems to have an inordinate number of more than fender benders. I'm not even counting fender benders in this. There was just beyond the other side, the west of the firehouse, a terrible accident with a young man and his car totaled. That happened several times. So how are you going to try to alleviate that kind of traffic situation? Not just lots of cars. At the corner where Passaic comes into River Road and you're going up, if you can get out of the driveway, which sometimes, and I think probably others of you cannot as well, and you get down toward that triangle, you look back behind you, traffic is all the way to the firehouse at times. It's all the way up in the bend and around the hill, and if you look to the right, traffic is bumper to bumper as far as you can see into New Providence. So that is a problem, but I see the accidents, the terrible ones that we've seen, as more of a concern to me than just lots of cars. Those are maybe the fender benders, where they look at their phone or whatever and drive into somebody behind them. But being in an ambulance, you're supposed to be safe and assured that you'll have a fair ride and get to the hospital in time. But something needs to be done. Is there any thought that you have now about that?
We will definitely talk to our police department about what we can do about that.
All right, that would help. Let's see if I just had anything else that I wanted to say. I guess probably that is it, but I did read in the master plan about all of the environmental concerns and the things that Chatham Township should be doing, that they should consider revising land use regulations so that no development can occur on steep slope areas, but I guess we lose on that too. Well, there we go. Okay. Maybe next time we go around, if there's reincarnation, we'll make a better choice on where we buy our houses and have a crystal ball so we can look in them and see what's coming up ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, before you start, before we go to a third round, I'm going to ask again if anyone else would like to speak, because we asked before and we didn't get any takers, but then we have a lot more after we already allowed some second time. So this is the last call for more speakers before we allow Mike to take a third round.
Okay. Paul Carlson, River Road. We're talking about traffic. I have an issue that since you're going to be talking to the police, could you please bring this up? All the truckers that want to avoid the traffic lights in New Providence, ignore the 10-ton sign, which you can barely see when it's spring and all the leaves are out. Can they do something about that? Scare the bejesus out of them.
I would think we should be able to do something about that, yes.
I've talked to one of the officers, and he said, well, they say they got work to do on River Road. Well, yeah, but the 8th dump truck that just went through, full of dirt,
Mm-hmm.
they are not working on River Road with. You know, ticket the bloody people. And if you have to, if they say, oh, well, I'm working down the street, follow them to where they're working.
Right.
And if they don't, ticket them.
I agree.
Please address it for me. Thank you.
Hello, it's getting late. Try and keep this short. My name is Diana Clark. I live at 803 River Road. And because in my 51 years in this country, I've discovered that people tend, once I open my mouth, not to listen to what I'm actually saying. I would just like to say that I've been a citizen for 44 years and that my husband and I moved to Chatham 20 years ago this May from Morris Plains actually. Before that we lived in upstate New York for 20 years. I live in a very modest house at 803 River Road at the Long Hill end of River Road. I expect to die in that house, so the property value is perhaps of less interest to me because I'm never going to sell it. My son will sell it and reap the benefit. It struck me that the site of my house would make a very nice place for a group home because it's on a corner next to the park. I want to say something about traffic. Those of us who live on River Road are very well aware of all the problems. The intersection with Fairmont Avenue. I had a reply from the chief of police when we were discussing this issue a few months ago now. And to my astonishment, the chief of police told us that putting a traffic light there would increase the likelihood of accidents. Yes, that's what he said. We all feel that having the 2 stop signs, which are so widely disregarded, people don't understand the etiquette, the safety procedure for observing the stop signs. A 4-way stop, there are 4-way stops around here that, again, people don't understand how to use them. And the sight lines at that intersection are what make it so difficult. So anyway, we felt as though, much as we would love Chatham to go on with its semi-rural quality, nevertheless, a traffic light seems to most of us might be the only solution to that problem. I've been trying to see all this evening. We all see this situation with affordable housing through the prism of our own experience and our own needs and our own property and our own children in the school district and so on. I've been trying to look at the big picture and think that, hate to say the word politics, but one of the issues that comes up here is the issue of income inequality. That's what is causing the fact that there are people who can't afford to buy big, beautiful houses in our lovely suburb. And that's one of the problems. It's not our problem, except it is. It's all of our problem. It's a national problem. We can't possibly solve it here in our town. What we can do is make an honest effort to comply with the very worthy requirement to provide affordable housing. I, on a point of fact, am very confused after listening, and I have been trying to concentrate. I don't understand whether the fact that the plan is to put 60 or 62 residences on River Road is a function of the difference in tax abatement, if that's the word, tax credit, or didn't I hear somebody say there was a possibility that there could be fewer residences there? So if there could only be 40, how does that tie in with the tax issue? I'm quite confused about that. I don't know if someone can, I'm sorry if you've already explained it.
No, it is confusing, no doubt about it. You want to get the 9% tax credits if you can. It's much better. It means much less of the project has to be financed by the local town.
Yes.
However, it's very competitive. There are more applications than there is money in the kitty. So they score every applicant, and it's scored on a whole range of criteria that the state applies to it. One of them is the number of residents that it's going to benefit.
Right.
And our information is that under 60 units, your score will drop precipitously.
Okay. So that's going to be a factor regardless of where we eventually, in some future world, put our affordable housing units. So we would lose that tremendous advantage if we can't find a site where we can put 60 or more units. Which is not good news for the people on River Road who are worried about the loss of character and so on. There again, it's difficult not to see this through our individual perspective of what the impact might be. I do think that talking about the impact on schools and planning for the possible growth in needs of our schools for children is sort of tied in with the fact that people want to come and live here. We all wanted to come and live here, those of us who chose to move here or who've lived here for many years. There are going to be more people coming to live here. Houses are going up, properties are being built. And I think it's a bit of a distraction, really, to talk about the fact that there are going to be needs for places for more children in the schools. I was sorry, not so much this evening, but during other sessions, to hear comments that made me think that people were not so much distressed about more people coming to live in Chatham Township as which people were coming to live in Chatham Township. I was absolutely astonished. I couldn't help laughing. Somebody actually used the word strippers. I remember. Does anybody else remember that? Yes. I thought that, it was a moment of light relief, but didn't really change things. I'm sorry I've wasted your time.
No, please
but
finish.
Anyway, thanks again to everybody for participating. I just hope we can get to a solution that will cause us all to be good neighbors.
Thank you. I'm going to close the public session after Mike has his third round. So if there's anyone who has not talked yet and or would like to come to the microphone, please do it now. Oh, very good, Mike. You're the final word.
I was bothered by your defense of the Dixie-Dale deal. I think you may not have read my memo that said Dixie-Dale is a bad deal for the township. How many students are put into the township school system by all of Chatham Glen and Vernon Grove?
I don't have that number.
Didn't read the memo. Okay. 37. 37 students, 972 units there. If you assume all of the students came from Chatham Glen, and you assume that Chatham Glen properties sell for around $300,000, that's roughly what they're on the market for.
Are you talking, I just want to clarify something. Are you talking about Vernon Grove, or are you talking about all of the 37 is coming from all of?
No, just 1,000 units.
Well, yeah, when I gave them the breakdown.
So the entire complex?
The entire complex, because I had to give them the streets and I didn't know which were in which. So they gave me the total, 37 for all of the streets in that area, okay? I don't have any idea what the value of Vernon Grove properties is. So I just took the value of the Chatham Glen properties, around $300K. Well, they're on the market for $300K.
They range anywhere from the mid 300s up to 675.
Okay, then it gets even worse when I give you my numbers. At $300K times 900 units and only 37 students, you have $7.5 million worth of real estate value supporting each student in the school system. Now, if you build a 1.2 million, it's easy, well, just take my word for it, 7.5 million per student. If you take a $1.2 million house, that seems to be what's going up around here, and they have 2 students in that new house go to the school, that's only $600,000 worth of real estate value per student. Nobody's complaining about single-family homes overloading our school system. So why are we so concerned about low to middle income homes in a development like Chatham Glen flooding our school systems? There are 8 units per acre in that development. The development potential of Dixie Dale, 28 acres, 30 acres, was about 250 units, of which 50 were supposed to be affordable housing. That means you'd have 200 townhomes or condos, perhaps similar to Chatham Glen. What makes you think you're going to have a flood of kids coming from those homes into our school system, when right across the street you have a dribble of kids coming into the school system? It doesn't make any sense.
I believe we're all in agreement on that.
Yeah, I think we've been making the case that it will not generate a ton of kids.
Right.
And conversely, I think we agree also with you about your assessment about single-family homes. A single-family home, when it sends a 3rd kid to the school system, is not paying enough taxes to pay for those 3 kids.
Right.
So the neighbor who doesn't have any kids in the school system is actually subsidizing that.
Right.
So, I mean, there's no disagreement on what you're saying.
Okay, so then why was Dixie Dale a good deal? What Dixie Dale, the developers did, Sterling, is they offloaded their 50-home responsibility for that property onto the township. They built 24 on land we gave them at the skate park site, which we now desperately need for our own affordable housing program. And they dumped another 26 on us. They owe us 50, 24 they built, 26 they dumped those on us to fulfill. And so, whereas you can say Dixie Dale was a good deal in terms of a lot of real estate value and very few students into the school system, it created a mess for our affordable housing program for the balance of the 74. It left us in a bad situation. So I don't think Dixie Dale was a good deal at all. I think it was a bad deal. And I wish you'd quit, saying, oh, we got this great deal because we're going to have 53 upscale homes paying lots of taxes. It's left us in a mess. It's why we have 62 homes now being built on River Road. So I just wanted to, and I hope you would go back now and read my memo.
I disagree. I think that Dixie Dale was an excellent deal. And I think that for you to say the opposite would put yourself in the position of you as a homeowner, if you were not allowed to do what you wanted to do with your property according to the zoning that was allowed. Now, in Dixie Dale's situation, they would have been allowed to have built 17, I believe, single-family homes. That was what the property was zoned for. And 17 single-family homes would have been a bad financial deal for the township because, as we just said before, if a single-family home of the typical size that's built in Chatham Township these days, if it has 3 kids, they're not paying enough taxes to support those 3 kids.
I'm confused.
Now let me finish.
I'm confused.
So they applied to the township as the property owner. They said, we would like the township to change the zoning, but we'd limit it to 53 units. And in addition to the zoning change, they said they would dedicate 40% of the property for green space, that they would renovate and restore the estate house, and that even though the state requirement is either 15% or 20%, depending on the development of affordable housing, they decided to do twice that amount. Instead of 10 and 11 units, they did 24. Right. So they doubled the amount of affordable units that development would have generated under state law. That we thought was a good deal. And we took it. And the alternative would have been a lot more homes, a lot less trees, a lot more traffic, a lot less environment for birds and animals, a lot more water runoff, and a lot of things that I think, a lot of traffic coming out of it, and I think a lot of the things that people here have been complaining about tonight. So I disagree entirely that Dixie Dale was a bad deal.
Okay, so the development, as I understand it, would have had the same density as Chatham Glen. Do you think Chatham Glen is a terrible-looking place? Why would not an extension of Chatham Glen across the street onto the Dixie Dale property have been okay? I don't get it. I mean, it's just another lower middle income development that fills with mostly empty nesters or singles or childless couples. It's not a big family development at Chatham Glen, and it wouldn't have been at Dixie Dale. So they assigned us 50 units to be of affordable housing obligated to come from that property, and you're saying, gee, we really did well by doing these upscale developments, but look at the load for fulfilling the affordable housing obligation that was put on the township. And, you know, that's why you've got 62 units going on to River Road, because you gave away Dixie Dale to Sterling.
That was actually a private transaction between a seller and a buyer, right? The transfer of Dixie Dale.
Right, but don't we have to approve the zoning?
Well, the zoning was done, and that's why the buyer was buying it. That's why the seller was selling it. And the other thing is that the entire Chatham Glen condominium complex at one point belonged to the estate that we're looking at with Dixie Dale.
The Avert estate, I understand.
And anecdotally, and people who were friendly with Sam will recall for you his remorse at having to sell that entire portion of property and watch what happened to it with 900 odd units going up right out his back door.
Sure.
And it was a painful decision for him, and it was something I believe he regretted. So when it came time for his niece to sell this property, I think she was extremely cautious about limiting the density because of what she saw at Chatham Glen. So her goal, and I know that you've had many conversations with them, her goal was really to mitigate the impact to the township as a whole and to leave it in a kind of bucolic setting when you think about it. She didn't want to see the potential for development to go up the way that Sam had seen it.
Sure,
so these were her intentions.
Right, but then why didn't they accept the burden of the 50 affordable housing units?
What 50?
Because that is the...
That would have been one for one. That wouldn't be the obligation.
If you go into the settlement agreement, and then the table way down in the bottom of the thing, I don't know if we ever got that far in reading it, the tabulation of close to 200, you know, and you add them all up, 50 units came out of that Dixie Dale property. Actually, it's the Dixie Dale plus the extra 5 acres that they have. So it's 47 and 3.
Sure, that would be mitigating the fact that this was a private property transaction. That was their calculation of the realistic development
of the carrying capacity. Right. So how do we satisfy that? We take the obligation for satisfying that and let the Dixie Dale developer off the hook.
You're mistaken on that 50. They never had a legal obligation to provide 50 units.
They don't, okay, but it's...
That property never had a legal obligation to produce 50 units.
It's in the table.
It's in the table. If it was developed at its full potential, that's the number that would have been generated.
Right.
But that's a table, that's a number. The property owner developing it with 53 units only had to provide 11, and they provided 24. So, you know, you're going to a table of that measures acreage and potential, and it does not reflect the reality.
Well, my view is different. My view is that you had a almost 30-acre site there that could have been developed such that you satisfied 50 units, and you didn't do it. Okay.
Thank you, Mike. Seeing no one, we're going to close the public portion of the meeting. Is there any discussion items that... Can I receive a motion to adjourn? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.